Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Cabbage Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Had a Karma-Based Quirk? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. He hated his life. His curse was being born quirkless, which had brought so much suffering into his life. He looked at the road below, considering jumping, but his sense of righteousness and knowing that this would hurt his mother kept him from ending it all. All Might's words ring in his ears as he looks down from the rooftop. Some villains simply cannot be defeated without a quirk, so no, a quirkless person cannot be a hero. Why don't you take a swan dive off the roof? Maybe you will be born with a quirk in your next life. He considered taking Kacchan's advice and ending it all, but again his mother's crying face came to mind. Then again, Izuku is a burden, and maybe his mother would appreciate being free from him. He looked down one last time before he left. He was going home when he heard the noise of a quirk, the crackling sound of Kacchan's explosions. Curiosity took over, and he went to check. What he found terrified him. The sludge villain from earlier had Kacchan, and the pro-heroes, including All Might, were not doing anything. Before he could think it through, he was running towards them. The eyes, his mind whispered, pointing him towards the only solid part of the sludge villain. He tried to reach for the villain's eyes, but Kacchan's explosions burned his hands. He ignored the feeling of being burnt, prioritizing the villain. He kept pushing, enduring the pain until he found the villain's eyes. He held onto one and took a pen out of his pocket to stab him, but the villain saw it with the other eye and figured Izuku had found his weakness. He tried to run away while letting go of Bakugo. His eye started to move inside Izuku's hand, and Izuku let it go. Seeing as the sludge villain had let go of Bakugo, All Might moved and punched the air, scattering pieces of the villain around. The other heroes moved to check up on Bakugo. Izuku watched as they told Bakugo how brave he was and how he was going to be a great hero. Then they turned to him, and instead of praising him, they reprimanded him, telling him how dangerous it was for a quirkless person to jump into danger like that, how his body was not suited for dangerous acts, and that he should stop acting like a hero. He figured Bakugo had told them about his lack of a quirk. His blood boiled the more he listened. How was the bully more suited for heroics than him? Was a quirk all that it took to be a hero? His anger increased as he heard All Might's voice praising Bakugo, saying he might surpass him, and that he hoped he applied to UA. Watching his idol tell his tormentor what he wanted to hear on that rooftop hurt so much. Thud. The sound of a hero falling is what broke him out of his thoughts. The other pro checked up on him and concluded he might have fainted due to lack of sleep. He had been working long hours lately. Izuku looked towards All Might, but he was gone. What remained were angry red eyes that seemed to radiate anger. He briefly wondered whose anger was stronger. Katsuki fell to his knees and held his head as if he had a headache. Izuku decided it was time to leave. He didn't know how long he walked, too stuck in his head, but he came back when he bumped into the smaller version of All Might. The hero coughed blood for a while before finally addressing Izuku. "Young man, I saw how you saved that boy, and I want to know why," the man said. "My feet moved before I could think, and I knew the eyes were the villain's weakness, so I went for them," he replied to All Might. All Might puffed up before smiling at Izuku, the same cheesy smile he gave to the cameras when he said anyone could be a hero. The same cheesy smile that had given him hope that he, too, could do it before All Might crushed Izuku's dream himself. Izuku clenched his fist in anger. Why did he have to go through a test just to prove he could be a hero while someone like Bakugo didn't? Why did he have to prove his worth when the unworthy and undeserving didn't? "My boy, I have something to share with you. My quirk, One for All, is a quirk that can be transferred from one holder to another. A sacred torch passed through 8 generations to help fight evil, and now, my boy, I'm passing on this power to you." Izuku stared at All Might, his mind going through all the words All Might had said. A transferable power that All Might was giving to him. A chance for him to be a hero. He smiled, about to accept the offer, but then his overthinking mind went over the conversation again before he came to one conclusion. "You can be a hero. I'm giving my quirk to you." He saw it now. All Might still thought Izuku couldn't be a hero. He still thought that quirkless people were fragile. He thought Izuku's value was in a quirk, and that's why he wanted Izuku to take his, because only with All Might's quirk could Izuku amount to something. He hated it. He hated that everyone was right. He hated that he was still useless and that fate had cursed him. He heard Kacchan's voice calling him Deku over and over again while the kids in his class laughed. He heard his teacher reprimand him for being noisy, while Kacchan screamed from the top of his voice, knowing he would face no consequences. He saw his teacher mark his correct answers wrong because God forbid he scored higher than the quirked kids. He heard his teacher slip up and call him Deku, an indicator of how they referred to him among themselves. He saw as they waved it off as if it was no big deal. Izuku looked at All Might and saw everything he hated about being quirkless. He also noted that All Might did not apologize for what he had said on the rooftop. The number one hero, an example of what a hero should be, powerful quirk and charming personality. For one brief second, Izuku thought about blaming him for how society perceived quirks and how they thought only powerful quirks were heroic, but he dismissed it before the idea took root. Izuku smiled at All Might, who was waiting for an answer. "I'm honored that you think I'm worthy of this powerful quirk, but I, unfortunately, have to decline. I have thought long and hard on that rooftop and have realized heroics is not for me." All Might looked at Izuku, short-circuiting as he tried to respond. But my boy, this is great power that I thought you wanted to be a hero," his tone incredulous as if the idea that a quirkless boy refusing great power was too far-fetched, and maybe it was. "Are you sure you don't want my quirk, young man?" Izuku nods because yes, he is sure. He turns, bows, and bids All Might farewell before he can come back from the shock. Soon as he is out of eyesight from All Might, his anger comes back, but with this anger comes hurt. He thinks about how All Might gave a different answer to the same question based on quirks. No, he corrects himself, but Kogo didn't ask if he could be a hero. All Might made that assumption all by himself. He wants to cry from the pain of being forced to give up on his dreams. He doesn't cry, instead he punches the wall. His knuckles bleed from the force. "Are you okay?" a nice lady asks as she sees his hand. As soon as she comes close, she falls to her knees and struggles to stand. Izuku's hero instinct kicks in, the anger forgotten as he goes to help the lady. She accepts his help and thanks him. "Oh, looks like your hand is healed. Great quirk you got there." "Oh no, I'm quirkless," he responds as he checks his knuckles, seeing that, yes, indeed his knuckles are almost healed. Weird. When he looks up at the lady, he sees sympathy in her eyes. "You should not be alone like this. You should have someone to protect you, always." God knows villains like to prey on the weak. Anger, boiling anger, that is all he feels. The lady seems to have a problem breathing again and falls to her knees. The more his anger rises, the harder it is for her to breathe. Izuku's anger vanishes and is replaced with concern. As soon as his anger vanishes, the lady starts breathing normally. Izuku notices and decides to experiment. He lets anger consume him and it starts all over again. He soothes his anger, watching her go back to normal. He thinks of his brother, letting happiness and love take over, and nothing happens. He experiments with different emotions and soon notices a pattern. The lady is looking at him with fearful eyes, scared of whatever the boy is doing to her. It was painless, but it looked like she was uncomfortable with being a guinea pig. Izuku gives her a small smile before running off towards his home. Izuku Midoriya. Quirk, negative emotion. To update along with the title. The quirk seems to utilize negative emotions from within Izuku and project them onto others, causing disorientation. It requires a target to work, meaning that if Izuku is feeling hatred, for example, he needs to project it onto someone else for his quirk to activate. This may explain why his quirk has not manifested until now, as he has never directed his negative emotions towards anyone before. Additionally, it could also explain why he is able to sense other people's emotions, something he has been ignoring until now. Izuku wonders if he can harvest other people's negative emotions and use them against them, but he also considers the potential effects on himself, as his quirk seems to affect him differently, as evidenced by the earlier incident with his knuckles. He quickly looked at the clock, closed his book, and got ready to call his adopted brother. Hashtag 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 hashtag. Izuku's father left when he was 5 years old. In the weeks leading up to his departure, Izuku's mother, Inko, was always either angry or crying. When his father suddenly packed his bags and left, promising to call Izuku when he landed in America, there was no explanation given for why he was leaving. During their first phone call, Izuku's father sounded happy and talked about all the sightseeing he had done, the places he had visited, and his new house. Every time Izuku happily chattered with his father, he would notice his mother's angry yet sad eyes. Izuku eventually stopped asking for his father to come back every time he called because then his mom would look at him with those eyes. It was because of those eyes that he settled for once a week and stopped talking to his father in front of his mom. He even stopped retelling his mother every story his father told him. Money started getting tight around the house, and he thought about telling his father, but the memory of those eyes stopped him. The confirmation that he did the right thing by not telling his father came weeks later when he overheard his mother crying to Mitsuki, telling her how she didn't need Hisashi's money and that she could take care of them without his help. Izuku was 8 when his father introduced him to Tamura as his second son and Izuku's brother. At first, Izuku was hurt that his father was replacing him with a better Quirk child, but that changed when he saw the sadness in his father's eyes. Tamura smiled at Izuku, calling him little brother, and proceeded to tell him that he would take care of him for sensei. Izuku's dad was called sensei for some reason. Tamura was a bit unusual. He hated heroes, especially All Might, which caused him and Izuku not to get along at first. But Izuku decided to take it as a challenge to get him to like heroes. They compromised and settled with underground heroes being the best. The moment Tamura got a phone, Izuku made sure to call as often as possible. His mother did not mind and even seemed to encourage the relationship with Tamura. Izuku taught Tamura how to take off his dry skin. He researched products that help with quirk-induced dry skin, went to different forums to see what works best, and found a product that is available in both Japan and America. He sent step-by-step instructions to Tamura on how to wash his hair, which Tamura complained is for girls. He tried to make sure that Tamura ate healthily, but unlike with his appearance, he had no way to make sure. Izuku was relieved that Tamura never treated him poorly for not having a quirk. In fact, he promised to beat up anyone who bothered him, which was probably why Izuku's mom liked him so much. Tamura was the first to express concern instead of hate and told Izuku to stop being friends with Bakugo, but how could one stop admiring his hero just like that? He now admits he should have listened because Bakugo got worse in middle school, going from pushing and name-calling to beating Izuku up and even suicide baiting him. Izuku hid the burns and bruises from Tamura, but from the way his jaw clenched when he saw Izuku in a hoodie, he knew that Tamura suspected something. To distract Tamura, Izuku would start talking about a new game, and his brother would play along just to make Izuku happy. It was no surprise that Tamura was the first to know about Izuku's newly discovered quirk. Izuku waited patiently as the phone rang, knowing that it took Tamura a while to answer calls, and he was probably in the middle of a game. When Tamura finally answered, Izuku went straight to the point and told him the news. Tamura's jaw dropped in surprise before giving Izuku a genuine smile, albeit a small one. "That's so amazing, brat. Does this mean you'll join me in my quest to destroy society?" he teased, expecting Izuku's usual reply about becoming a hero and saving lives. But this time, Izuku didn't reply. He was met with silence, which worried Tamura. "Are you okay, Zuzu? Did that Bakugo brat do something to you? Because I swear I'll decay his face once I take down Hero Society." "I met All Might today," Izuku said in a surprisingly low voice. Tamura did a double take. Izuku met All Might, and instead of vibrating with happiness, he seems sad. "What the hell happened, brat?" Tamura watched as tears filled Izuku's eyes. His heart broke at the sight, and he swore to protect his brother more and make sure that this sight never repeated itself. "He said I couldn't be a hero just because I told him I'm quirkless. He said I'm weak and therefore useless against a villain. He didn't even ask if I had other skills or talents, just said no and left me on that rooftop," Izuku ranted to Tamura about his experience with All Might. And not even a second later, the same villain attacked Bakugo, and the heroes just stood there. I ran and saved him, and guess what the heroes did? They praised Bakugo for simply being there, just because he has a powerful quirk, while I was reprimanded for being quirkless and trying to be a hero because apparently, I'm weak. And All Might, the DM and hypocrite, had the nerve to tell Bakugo, bully Bakugo, that he can be a hero just because he has a fancy quirk. And if that wasn't enough, he approached me afterward and offered me one for all, no apology, no nothing. He glossed over the fact that he broke my heart as if it didn't matter. Can you believe I was almost happy to receive his quirk? I'm an idiot. Tamura listened to Izuku's rant, knowing that this was his only way to get things off his chest. Tamura was the only one Izuku had to talk to. He couldn't talk to his father because that hurt his mother, he couldn't talk to his mother because he didn't want to hurt her, and he didn't have any friends. Izuku's talks with Tamura were his only outlet for his feelings, which meant Tamura knew all that was going on in Izuku's life. Izuku cried for a few more minutes before looking at Tamura with tear-streaked eyes. I'm tired. I'm so tired of being strong and optimistic. It hasn't gotten me anywhere. No one cares that I'm kind and loving. They hear the word, quirkless, and immediately hate me. I'm so tired of seeing my perfect answers marked wrong because the teachers want to please the quirk children. I've been helping and helping everyone, but none of them ever helped me. I'm tired of caring for people who don't care for me. All Might showed me that no one will ever care for me and that I'm all alone in my struggles. I mean, if the number one hero doesn't care about the quirkless, then who will? Tamura just listened, knowing that Izuku didn't need his opinions, just his ear. He wanted to hug and comfort Izuku, but for various reasons, he couldn't, one being that Izuku believed he was in America. Do you know what came to my mind the minute my quirk activated? Izuku asked Tamura, who shook his head no. My first thought when my quirk activated wasn't, I'm gonna be a hero, but instead, revenge filled my mind. I could finally give Kacchan a taste of his medicine. I could get revenge against everyone at Aldra. I thought about being a villain, but no, that was too easy. I want everyone to suffer, and me becoming a villain will take the guilt off their shoulders, and instead, they would blame it on me being a bad child from the start. No, what I have planned for them is much worse. They better pray I don't master Dark Flare anytime soon. Izuku smiled, a familiar cruel smile, and for the first time, Tamura saw the similarities between Izuku and Sensei. The look in Izuku's eyes was familiar, a look that promised nothing but pain to whoever its target was, except this time it was scarier because unlike Sensei, Izuku liked the long game. He shivered, feeling sorry for all of Aldra. Deku, stupid Deku, how dare he? How dare he try to act like a hero? Katsuki had the situation under control. He didn't need help from some useless, quirkless freak, and he would make sure Deku knew that today. He would beat the boy to a pulp and assert his dominance. He had been too lenient on Deku, and that's why he has been looking down on Katsuki lately. He had purposely left his house a little late in hopes of running into Deku and giving him his lesson before class, which failed. It turned out that Deku was absent from school, which both pleased and angered Katsuki. Pleased because it meant the coward still knew his place and knew what Katsuki will do to him for his previous little stunt. Angered because that meant Deku forgot his purpose in life. He was useless in everything except being a punching bag for Katsuki. Guess tomorrow is another day. For today, one of the extras would have to take Deku's place as his target practice. The next day Deku did not come yet again, and Katsuki's mood was worse than yesterday, and that meant suffering for one of the Aldra extras. On the third day of Deku being absent, the homeroom teacher made an announcement about his whereabouts, some story about how he got struck by somebody's quirk which made him a little sick. The whole class prayed for his speedy recovery because they knew. They knew what it meant for Midoriya to be absent from school for an indeterminate amount of time. One of them would have to replace him. One of them will become Katsuki's target while he was waiting for Midoriya to come back. The teachers will do nothing as usual because they want Bakugo to succeed, and him getting fine control of his quirk meant he can get an easy pass into hero school. Katsuki was their last hope of getting their school name on the map and attracting kids from wealthy families. Deku came back after a month, and his aura feels different. For the first time in years Deku makes eye contact with him, willingly, the challenge clear in his eyes. Oh, it looks like Deku forgot his place while absent from school. Katsuki will just have to remind him. The teachers go on and on before the bell rings, signifying their lunch break. He looks towards Deku's seat but he is not there. He sees a green head walking with the teacher and just like any great hero he eavesdrops. Sir, I would like to change a few things regarding my high school application. Deku tells the annoying teacher. He briefly wonders what the stupid nerd wants to change. He must have decided not to go to UA after all. It looks like the daily lessons Katsuki has been giving Deku are finally paying off. Midoriya, you must have come to your senses. It's just like we've been telling you for years, you getting into UA is just a pipe dream. Now which high school are you going to? I have a few suggestions if that helps. The voice is so slimy, reminding him of when the teachers tell him he is meant for greatness, as if he needs their confirmation. Thanks for offering your help, sir, but it's nothing major. I just want to put general education as my second choice in the UA application. As you said, sir, I will definitely fail, so I at least want to know I've something to fall on. It seems that stupid Deku still wanted to go to UA. This is just confirmation that Deku still needs the daily lessons. This time he will need to break a few of the nerd's bones to make sure the lesson sticks. Midoriya, the teacher's voice sounds so tired, as if he's been doing this long enough and is desperate for a breakthrough. I know I will fail, sir, but I also want to try. In the future, I want to be proud of myself for trying. I don't want to be a bitter 40-something teacher who, because he didn't live his dreams, doesn't want his student to chase theirs. It's quiet for a few seconds, after which the sound of paper shuffling is heard and then the sound of pen on paper. Katsuki decides to go blow off some steam, deciding he will deal with Deku after school. As soon as he is outside the school building, he grabs the first extra he sees. It is skinny kid whose quirk make his neck longer. I heard you are applying to UA. With a weak quirk like that, do you think you are my equal UDMN discount giraffe? I have to teach you a lesson, so this thought doesn't occur again. He proceeds to beat the boy, making sure to avoid the face and any vital points. A crowd forms around him but nobody dares to stop him. Izuku just watches as Katsuki continues to beat Himikeya. Izuku from a month ago would have thrown himself between Katsuki and Giraffe to try and save the long-neck boy, but this new Izuku decides to just watch. He makes eye contact with Himikeya. The boy looks at him as if expecting him to do something to save him. He continues to hold eye contact with the boy until a girl with some weird animal mutation tugs at his jacket and with tears in her eyes asks him to save her boyfriend. A month ago the pleading eyes would have sent him into action, but he decides to ignore her. Himikeya starts looking like he is ready to pass out, the pain too much for his weak body. More students start to plead with Izuku to save him, but he already knows their game. He knows they are trying to sacrifice him, because if Bakugo is beating him, he will forget about them. No one cares that Izuku had to endure this kind of pain every day until his body's pain tolerance was forced to rise. Nobody cares that Izuku still has scars from these kinds of beating while they watched and laughed. They always watched and laughed because no one cares about the quirkless freak, but the beatings are suddenly inhumane when they are directed at a quirked individual. Izuku laughs bitterly at their pleading. They should be grateful he isn't using the explosives yet. He makes one last eye contact with Himikeya and starts walking back to the school building. Katsuki is in class, except his attention is not on the teacher, instead it's on Deku. There is something wrong with the nerd. He remembers the look from a month ago, the look in his eyes almost like a caged predator finally being let out to hunt. It's almost like Deku was angry enough to kill. He looks at the nerd again. The look is there but dulled. No, not dulled, it's hidden. It's not just Deku's eyes but his whole behavior. He is no longer stuttering, he is standing up to teachers and calling them out on their bullshit, and it looks like Deku finally let go of his savior behavior. He heard some of the extras talking about how Deku just let discount giraffe get beaten up without helping, never mind the fact that they themselves didn't help. Hypocrites. They talked about how Deku just laughed when they asked for help and then left them to deal with it, making it a point to call him a useless freak while telling the story. The final bell rang, to dismiss them from school, and unlike lunch, Deku didn't hurry up and leave. Instead he took his phone out and began texting while smiling. Who was making the DMN nerd smile? He never smiled at Katsuki like that. He watched as Deku blushed, then stood up ready to leave. He followed him because of course he would. Deku did not go toward the front gate and instead went behind the school. There happened to be a big spacer filled with trees behind their school. His instincts screamed for him to turn back, but Katsuki was no coward, and he refused to be intimidated by Deku. Something strange happened as soon as he enters the forest. The more he went forward, the more he felt like he was being forced down. He finally reached the small clearing in the middle, there to teach them pre-Quirk wild survival skills. Deku was there in the middle, a steel baseball bat in his hands. He turned to look at Katsuki, and instead of the emerald green eyes he was used to, he met toxic green ones. Deku, what do you think you are doing, you useless nerd? As soon as those words were uttered, he felt the pressure on his shoulders increase. Deku bent down, sprayed something on Katsuki's palms. It looked like deodorant but different. It had no distinct smell, as far as Katsuki was concerned. Deku then stood tall, in front of a kneeling Katsuki, playing with the bat in his hands, spinning it around as if learning a new trick. Did you know, just like you produce an explosive sweat, some people produce poisonous one? Deku laughs before continuing, I had all these plans on how to take you down, but it turns out all my answers were packed in a small cheap can of deodorant. How does it feel to be quirkless now, Kacchan? The Kacchan Katsuki noticed was spat out like venom, like it was disgusting to say. Shut up, Deku. How you so useless that you don't know deodorant doesn't last forever. As soon as I get my quirk back I will kill you. Deku looks at him before smiling, an innocent little smile before he holds the bat more firmly. I guess I just have to make sure it doesn't come back for a while. Heck, Kacchan. I saw what you did to Giraffe, so I'm sure you will not mind the same treatment being aimed at you, right? Before Katsuki can say anything, Deku lifts up the bat, pausing for a few seconds midair before bringing it down. Katsuki knows the exact moment it comes down on his body, because it hurts so bad. His chest burns, it feels as if Deku broke all of his ribs. He wants to scream but his lungs don't cooperate. Now Kacchan, there is a reason I aimed for your chest first. Now, let's do something about that amazing quirk of yours. Then it's his hands that are burning, then the legs, and pretty soon his whole body is in pain. It feels like he is being burned alive. His ears are ringing, and all he can do is listen as his bones are being broken, and soon he starts seeing black spots. The next time he wakes up, he is in a hospital room. He cannot move his body and his throat is sore. He moves his head to scan the room, noticing his entire body is mummified and his hands and legs are in casts. He looks at the door as it opens, and instead of his old hag and old man like he expects, he sees Deku. The nerd looks like he hasn't slept in a while. He looks messy, school shirt and jacket off, only undershirt and tie. The nerd looks at him and then smiles, the same smile he gave when talking about destroying Katsuki's quirk. Kacchan, you are awake. He then moves to the chair next to the hospital bed. Man, you are such a drama king. I didn't even destroy anything vital and you were already on the verge of dying. I know because I made extra sure not to hit the spinal cord. He seemed to realize something and then he quickly went to a table on the side and came back with a glass of water. He then forced me to drink. Are you better now, Kacchan? You won't get away with this. I will make sure you rot in jail, you psycho. Katsuki made sure to lace his words with malice. He needed Deku to know he meant it. Of course I'm gonna get away with it. I mean, who would believe the skinny, weak and quirkless boy would do this much damage? Certainly not the police. You think any sane person would believe the heroic explosion kid got beat by the quirkless one? Again Deku smiled, he was getting sick of the smiles, before patting his head in what would have counted as affection if not for the fact that Deku was the one who put him here. Who knew being quirkless was this liberating? I can get away with almost anything as long as I'm not caught red-handed, that is. Besides, if you say anything, I can just accidentally show Auntie the burn scars on my body while crying my eyes out and acting like you are making stuff up. When he said this, he pulled the sleeve of his shirt to show the scars. Auntie. Sniff. I don't know how Kacchan can sob that, how he can say that. I admit we often play rough, but I would never hurt him. He was sniffing and pretending to cry while he said all this. Oh, and his burn marks were all on display for all to see while he was putting this act on. He got closer to Katsuki, looking him dead in the eyes. Don't test me, Katsuki, and for a second his eyes were toxic green, before he smiled again like a psycho. Stay put, I'm gonna get Auntie and the cops, so toodles. Deku was almost to the door when he turned to look at Katsuki, this time his expression serious. One of the detectives has a lie detector test, so if asked what happened, tell the truth but don't mention my name. I would hate to do nerve damage to the point where you are unable to talk, so be careful. He watched Deku leave, a prep to his step. He did not know how to feel about this new version of the nerd. Deku came back 10 minutes later with a tear-streaked but relieved Mitsuki and a tall plain man who Katsuki assumes is the detective. It took another 15 minutes of the old hag and the fake that is Deku fussing over him before the detective could ask his questions. He told the detectives only what happened after he entered the forest. He made sure not to mention names or any identifying features. Do you know the name of your attacker? The detective asked, looking at Katsuki. I'm bad with names and faces, truth. I identify people by their most prominent features, truth, and as you can imagine, this may be a problem with people who are plain, and that boy was plain, so I know his name, but the plainness and pain got in the way. Truth. The detective then thanked him for helping and telling the truth. He then left with his mom to speak privately, leaving him with Deku. Do you know how lucky you are? Recovery girl happened to be at this hospital when you were brought in. She's the reason both your legs and arms are still functional. She will probably come by later to finish healing you, but even with her help, you will still have months of physical therapy before your hands and legs are fully functional. I hope you heal in time for the UA Hero exam, Kacchan. I have something to show you then. Katsuki almost laughed at how earnest Deku sounded. Showing concern and giddiness where it mattered, this was the Deku he was used, but apparently this was just a mask for Deku. You know, Kacchan, this is just the beginning. I will take everything from you, everything you love, I will take it and destroy it. I started with your reputation at school. Yes, they know you are ruthless, but if you only target me they can brush it off because quirkless people don't matter. They will now see you for what you are when you start to target them. Next came your quirk. I wanted to break your arms so bad that they shake every time you use your quirk. Again, Deku's tone was a light, happy one. No sign of the hate and anger from the forest. As you can see, you survived the quirk destruction. I admit I was angry at first, but then I thought about it clearly. I'm glad your quirk survived and I hope you get into UA. You know why I'm wishing you luck, Kacchan. He hated it now. The nickname, Kacchan, used to sound so lovely coming from Deku. A special something from Deku, something that was only his. He misses what it used to mean because now it sounded like poison. Deku no longer says it with affection because Deku no longer holds affection for him. This monster didn't acknowledge the name Kacchan as something to prize. Katsuki, like a good little boy, shakes his head no to answer Deku. Good, I'm glad you haven't caught on to my game. After all, the best part of this game is the surprise, and I hope to keep surprising. Kacchan, the name, this time, is said like the time in the forest, and for a second Katsuki thinks Deku is about to beat him up again. Chapter text. Tamura watched it all unfold. He watched as the world turned his kind-hearted brother into a mere shell of what he was. He watched as his brother transformed through the years, turning bitter the more he was told no because he was quirkless. He remembers the old Izuku, the one who would talk about quirks and heroes nonstop, the one who could find a use for any quirk no matter its nature. Izuku still talked shout heroes and quirks, but now he used it as an escape. A way to forget how the world views him. The last 2 years were the worst for Izuku. Before middle school, the kids were mean, but they were also cowards. They were too scared to resort to physical violence, just name-calling. The kids in middle school were a different breed, especially shitty Aldra. They enjoyed violence. They picked on those they perceived as weak, and like sheep, they followed the strong. The quirkless were weak and defenseless, so they were easy targets. Izuku was an easy target. As usual, he did not defend himself. He left it to the teachers to do their jobs, but unlike before, the teachers did nothing but encourage it. Tamura tried, God knows he did. He tried to convince Izuku to leave Mizutofu and come live with Sensei and him. Izuku refused, reasoning that he didn't want to leave his mother alone. Over time, the bullying stopped being a big deal to Izuku, preferring to hide the bruises than talk about them. Their daily talks mostly consisted of Izuku in a hoodie while they talked gaming because school was a sore subject. Tamura watched as Izuku's skin accumulated scars, nothing too big as to prove quirk use, just big enough to be seen. As the star-shaped scars increased, Izuku began talking less about Bakugo. One bad day Izuku had called him after school, crying about how the teachers were being unfair. They kept accusing him of cheating every time he got a 100% of the questions correct until they got tired of accusing him and just started marking him wrong. He cried for hours while Tamura tried to comfort him, only stopping when he knew it was time for his mom to come back. "Nichan, do you really think I can be a hero?" This was the first time Izuku has ever asked him this question. Usually, he was the one telling Tamura about how he was going to be a hero. He never asked for Tamura's opinion. "Sure, Zuzu, anyone can be a hero, but since you are basically quirkless right now, it means it's going to be harder for you. You have to work 20 times harder and smarter than Bakubich just to be considered on his level. Here's some advice. Look up hero fights, analyze the villains, and see if you could find a way to defeat them without using a quirk. A fight with the same villain can end differently according to which hero shows up. The same is true with quirkless people. You can still win Zuzu, but the fight will be different, less flashy. I know you are smart, Zuzu. Learn some martial arts, know how to handle any weapon, level up your analysis, and you will be better than any of the other hero brats. And hey, if being a hero doesn't work out, we can always rebuild society together." He joked, "Thank you, Tamura, that means the world to me." That was the first and last time Tamura actively encouraged Izuku to be a hero. Tamura watched as Izuku changed after that day with All Might. His room was still an All Might shrine, but now it was used as a cover-up. No one would think that the quirkless, All Might fanboy was dangerous, which worked well for Izuku. Izuku started reading coding programming books, started learning the law, and highlighting the loopholes. He also started learning anatomy for normal human beings and mutated human beings. His analysis changed, started focusing more on finding weaknesses and drawbacks of quirks. It was a little over 9 months after the incident with All Might. Of course, Tamura knew it was coming because that was all Izuku talked about, but it was still a shock to him. The newspaper heading provides joy to his heart because Izuku finally did it. He got his revenge. He went to read the newspaper to Sensei. Something was going on with Deku. Katsuki sat in class watching shitty Deku read a thick chemistry textbook that was too advanced for middle school. He has been doing this for the past 7 months and 2 weeks, always reading, something Katsuki would have thought was for educational purposes if Deku's grades weren't so shitty. And the books weren't focused on one thing, they were so versatile. From physics to quirk laws. Each week meant a new and thicker textbook, but for some reason, Deku has spent the last few weeks rereading his chemistry textbooks. He found that suspicious. Midoriya, solve the problem on the board. The teacher looked annoyed for some reason. They probably noticed how Deku wasn't paying attention. Deku lifted his head and looked right at the teacher before giving an innocent smile. "No." "What?" The teacher looked shocked. No, everyone was shocked. This was the first time Deku ever talked back to a teacher, and to top it off, the teacher wasn't even rude, this time, to him. "I said no, was I not audible enough?" Deku tilted his head as if confused. The teacher now looked ready for murder, glaring at Deku. Katsuki was pretty sure if her quirk wasn't changing hair and eye color, it would be laser eyes. "Deku, to the principal's office now. I'm tired of your attitude." The whole class watched as Deku tidied up his desk, put everything in his yellow school bag, and left the classroom with the teacher following behind him. As soon as the door shut, the class exploded. People talking over each other, each wanting his Deku attitude theory to be heard. He just kept quiet and listened as his classmates talked about what may have brought Deku's new attitude. Drags seemed to be the main suspect. They mentioned how quirkless people often did them. Katsuki knew better. He knew it was deeper than that. The teacher came back 30 minutes later looking satisfied with themselves. "Deku will not be joining us for the remaining weeks left of school. He has been suspended and now has a permanent mark on his record. Unfortunately, it's too late to withdraw his high school applications without hurting Aldera, but I'm sure we are all happy to get rid of him." The whole class cheered, happy to get rid of the quirkless freak. Normally they would be scared Bakugo would pick, but he has been calm ever since he came back to school. Now he just called them mean names and yelled at them, which to them was an improvement. It was 8 months 2 weeks after the bat incident and 3 weeks after Deku's suspension. It was during lunch. Katsuki was eating homemade lunch because he was following specific diet that helped him gain muscle mass. The extras as usual were surrounding, chattering nonstop. The doors to the lunch hall were kicked open and police officers ran in. It was silent for a few seconds before the learners started panicking and trying to run away. "Everyone please calm down." Katsuki watched as the officers went and arrested the kitchen staff. He listened as they listed the charges, something about endangering students' lives by giving them drags. He was still confused when he saw, from the window, the principal handcuffed and being put in a police car. For some reason, a bunch of media people were outside taking photos. They were screaming questions at the principal and some of the handcuffed teachers. About 6 teachers and the principal were arrested. Their parents were sent an emergency email to come and pick up the students. An explanation came in the form of a newspaper article. Aldra in hot water as principal tests new drag on students. Katsuki had to read the heading 5 times and the actual article 10 times to make peace with what happened. Apparently, the school was testing a new type of trigger on the students which they put in the school-provided lunch. This version of trigger, the effects are supposed to last longer. The drag is dangerous and addictive, but allegedly if taken in the correct dosages, it can force a quirk awakening. The testing started over 2 months ago and the police don't know how long the drag takes to leave a person's body as it is an experimental black market drag. Parents are supposed to call the police as soon as the students start experiencing withdrawals. The government officially closed Aldra a week later and a week before the UA entrance exam, and through it all Deku was quiet, as if he didn't care. Chapter text. A little over 10 months ago, seeing the gates of UA would have made him excited. He probably would be staring wide-eyed at the building, standing there like a fool. Or maybe he would have tried to analyze and think about all the cool heroes in UA while walking toward the examination center, which would have caused him to fall like the idiot he was. "You, what is a quirkless reject like you doing here? You know they don't allow losers like you here." 10 months ago Izuku would be a stuttering mess right now, trying to hide his embarrassment from everyone while trying and failing to justify himself to Katsuki. But this is the new Izuku. He has 0 fs to give about who thinks what about him. He is on a mission to give Kacchan the middle finger in the best, worst way possible, so he doesn't have time to care about the opinion of a few extras. He merely ignores Kacchan in favor of heading to the examination center, something he knows will drive him absolutely crazy, and he is proven right when he hears explosions and screeching behind him. The written portion is easy, laughably so. He knows he would have passed it even back when he was quirkless, which brings up the question of how much the written test contributes to placement. He wonders if somebody who got a 100% on the written test and got only 30% on the practical test would have passed and placed in the heroics course. Next is the practical exam. He listens to Present Mike explain the point system, and without even realizing it, he falls back into his old habits of mumbling. A boy who he identified as Ingenium's brother stands up, interrupting Present Mike to apparently correct him. Annoying. The boy then turns to him. "You with the green hair. Stop what you are doing, you are disturbing other learners." Izuku wishes he could answer him with something snarky, maybe mention how unfit he is to be a hero if a little mumbling distracts him this much. Does he think rescue operations are quiet and peaceful? What about a villain fight? Will he say he lost because it was noisy so he couldn't bring out his full potential? He doesn't say his thoughts, only looking down and mumbling a quiet apology, something he would have naturally done 10 months ago instead of pretending as he does now. Present Mike diffused the situation by answering Ida Jr. He doesn't comment on Ida's rude behavior towards Izuku, just continues with the explanation as if nothing happened. Izuku doesn't look up, worried his anger and resentment would show through his eyes. He feels his power, gentle tingling under his skin. He doesn't let the negative emotions go, knowing it will help him defeat the robots. Looks like he is in Center B, hopefully away from Katsuki. He doesn't want to ruin the surprise yet. The practical is a little disappointing to him. All those nights of vigilantism only to fight stiff opponents whose greatest weapon is a laser. He lets his emotions consume him. He has figured out how to use his quirk on himself, and to be honest, it's overpowered. Different emotions have different uses. Now he lets anger consume him. He thinks of his past and uses those emotions to enhance his speed and strength, and unlike the first time, his control is impeccable. He goes on a hunt destroying every robot in sight. He also goes around saving the other examinees because he figures there is no way a hero school won't give points for rescues. It's nearing the end of the exam when he feels the tremors, the fear in the air rises, and he grins. He closed his eyes, calling the fear to him so he can harvest it to power himself. He learned this little trick months ago on his nightly trips. He feels it hum around him. Fears, as he learned, create barriers, keeping him away from what's causing him distress. The barriers are strong but also dangerous, cutting whatever is in their path as they come down. The radius is small and honestly, Izuku couldn't care much about increasing it as he plans to use it to protect only himself. He runs towards the tremors and sees the 0-pointer. Looks like it's time to make an impression. He jumps up, making sure to fall on top of the 0-pointer. When he is almost on top of the 0-pointer, he uses the harvested fear inside of him to project a barrier. He watches as it goes around him and on top of him, leaving the only open space beneath him. As soon as he lands on top of the robot kneeling, the barrier cuts through the robot, and as soon as the robot stopped moving, he deactivated the barrier. Present Mick's voice sounds through the speakers calling an end to the exam. As he is about to follow his fellow examinees out of Battle Center B, a girly voice calls out to him, and for a second Izuku wonders if it will affect his entrance to UA if he beats somebody up on school grounds. Deku, he watches the girl as she hops on one leg to get to him. "Thank you for saving me from the 0-pointer." She gives a grateful smile, but Izuku does not return it. "You are welcome, now if you will excuse me," he goes to leave. He doesn't mention how he didn't even see her. How he just did that move to get attention on him. The old Izuku would have been honest and told her just that, but the old Izuku is gone. The new Izuku would use this in the future in case he needs a favor. It's always good to have people in your debt. He touches his chest, feeling new emotions, the drawback of his quirk. It's not negative like other quirks, but he does not like it. He looks back at UA High and smiles. "Can't wait for my acceptance letter." The UA staff watched the new batch of hero hopefuls, watching as they came up with creative ways to deal with the robots. Two particular students showed more raw power than the rest. They watched as the angry-looking Pomeranian blasted robots apart while yelling "die." The green one was a bit different, and if the teachers didn't know All Might a little better, they might have thought he was his secret love child. He was strong and fast, punching robots apart with the only indicator that he was there being the black lightning around him. Unlike the Pomeranian, this one was helping the others. The teachers already knew he had the highest score, but what sealed the deal was watching him take down the 0-pointer without lifting a finger. Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo, both from Aldra Junior High. The teachers turned to look at Nedzu, who mentioned Aldra. Everyone knew the Aldra scandal, how they were feeding the kids trigger in hopes that the effects lasted and a quirk awakening would happen. Are these two? Hisashi left the question hanging, knowing Nedzu will know exactly what he wants to know. No, Bakugo-kun and Midoriya-kun were not affected by the drag. Bakugo-kun's power has always been that explosive. Midoriya-kun is another story though. Has a powerful but invisible quirk that has special conditions to activate, which apparently runs in his father's family. Quite fascinating that he has already activated and mastered it. Nedzu grinned, which made the others shiver. All Might was quite interested in the green-haired child. For some reason he looked quite familiar. If he didn't know any better, he would have thought the green-haired looked like All For One, but he's sure he killed All For One, so there was no such chance. "Your class will be interesting this year, Aizawa-kun," Nedzu called out to Aizawa as he was leaving. 2 weeks later, and Izuku was opening the letter with the UA seal on it. A little box came out, and as soon as he pressed the little button, his anger spiked. "God, I hate All Might." He listened as the hologram congratulated him for getting first place, 40 points ahead of the second student. All Might finished by welcoming him to the Hero Academia. "I honestly did not like how Chapter 4 ended. Death is too easy, and I wanted something that will end Aldra once and for all. So I changed half of Chapter 4, and I have now finished Chapter 5 as it was incomplete. Was going through stuff back then. I will keep this notice up indefinitely for those who have bookmarked it. Expect Chapter 6 Friday, Saturday, as I'm busy tomorrow. Anyway, PS if you liked the Chapter 4 as it was, please Please tell me in the comments and I will change it back to the original chapter text. Dear Yue and Netsu, I extend my gratitude for the acceptance letter I recently received into the esteemed hero course. However, after engaging in a PRD of much-needed introspection, I regret to inform you that I have come to the realization that heroics is not my calling. With all due respect, I would like to relinquish my seat in the hero course, particularly in 1A, to a deserving student who has a passion for heroism. If feasible, I would like to request a transfer to the general education course, assuming that space is still available. Although I am aware that class placement has already been finalized, I humbly appeal to your sense of fairness and ask that you consider my request. Thank you for your understanding and continued support. Sincerely, Izuku Midoriya. Aizawa looked back and forth between the printed email in his hand and Netsu, who was sipping his tea. It was quite shocking for a learner to refuse entrance into the hero after taking the test, and to top it off, it's the top examinee. This is the first time in all his time teaching at UA that something like this has happened. Yes, they have been instances where students rejected UA for another hero school, the most recent being Urashi Inasa, but even those had concrete reasons. Students usually want to move from the general education course to the hero course, not vice versa. Midoriya Izuku, 3rd year in Aldra. Not much on his record in terms of excellence. 2 marks on his record, one of which is recent. He is not failing, but his grades are average. He gets into fights regularly and is a bully. He was expelled from school over a month ago for antagonizing his teacher. Netsu continued to list all the bad things Izuku had on his record, even from way back in elementary school. Let me guess, you are going to give Midoriya exactly what he wants, otherwise I wouldn't be here. Aizawa guessed. Yes, you are right, Aizawa-kun. Although Midoriya's record leaves little to be desired, his quirk is impressive. Let's not forget he got the highest score on both the written and practical tests. He has the brains and brawn to do anything he wishes, and I want to cultivate him into the perfect hero. His quirk, from what I observed, could surpass even All Might's before the end of high school, not to mention that although he said he quit heroics, he still has a few entrance exams this week into other hero schools. If I don't give him space into Gen Ed, I might lose him to another hero school. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. Is the boy really strong enough that he could surpass the symbol of peace before even finishing high school? I'm gonna get All Might and all the other heroes here to convince Midoriya-kun to join the hero course. After all, who doesn't like All Might? Aizawa sighed. He honestly did not like how the child sounded on paper. Normally kids with strong quirks like Midoriya were bullies with their heads in their buttes, except Midoriya grew up quirkless, so Aizawa couldn't understand his attitude. Was it a defense mechanism that went out of control? What's my role in all of this? I'm underground, so I know the reply. Oh, I know, but you are a likable person, and trust me, I have high standards for the people I choose to like. Must not be high enough if I fit them, Shinso replied dryly as they walked out of the classroom. You would be surprised how many people fail to meet them. He increased his pace before turning back and taking Shinsu's hand to pull him along. Let us hurry, I want to get a nice seat in the center back so I can sleep in peace without getting the teacher's attention. Shinso just followed Izuku without saying a word, which Izuku took as acceptance of their new friendship. The second day began better than the first day. Yes, the press harassed him asking about Shitty Might, but they got off his back when he mentioned he is in Gen Edition. The reason for his happy mood: yesterday he managed to successfully hack the entirety of the Muzutafu city cameras. He wished he had started hacking when he started martial arts. Tamura was right, it's good to have a set of skills other than punching people when going into heroics. Good morning, Shinsu-kun. The only indicator that said boy heard him was the changing of sleeping position. He sat down and pulled a coding textbook from his new black school bag, because All Might SCK and yellow is not Izuku's color. Present Mike arrived 10 minutes later. As soon as he entered the class, Shinso woke up. Good morning, listeners. Today we will be choosing class representatives, and yes, I know you haven't known each other long enough and that this may be unfair, but we will have to make do. I want those who want to be class president to raise their hands, and the class will choose someone from those who volunteered. Let's start. There was a murmur among the class before people started to raise their hands. There were a total of 8 volunteers, of which 5 were girls, and now that Izuku deals paying attention to the class, he noticed it was dominated by girls. 12. Izuku voted for color-changing girl because why not? At the end, a short girl with red hair whose quirk Izuku remembered was reading super fast, which allowed her to retain information quicker. The vice president position went to a tall girl with the coolest hair Izuku has ever seen. Her quirk was Spotlight, and when activated it drew everyone's attention to her. The brain and the charmer. As soon as Izuku heard the bell indicating lunch break, he poked Shinso. What? Shinso responded as he stood up, tidying his desk up. Let's sit together for the lunch break. You are one of the 2 people I know here and the other one is an a-hole. Izuku may have changed last year, personality and attitude-wise, even his ideals and interests changed, but the one thing that remained is his fear of being alone. There is a reason he followed Katsuki around like a lost puppy despite everything Katsuki was doing to him, and that is the fear of being lonely. Katsuki was his first friend, and when he developed his quirk, the duo started growing as more people wanted to be friends with Katsuki, so him being with Katsuki meant they wanted to be friends with him. Katsuki represented friendship to Izuku. Whoever was friends with Katsuki got to be friends with everyone. If he was with Katsuki, he never had to be alone. I have plans, Shinso replied in a deadpan voice. Izuku froze. It looks like the hot boy was rejecting any form of friendship from him. He thought about just ignoring what Shinso told him and just dragging him along, but then he remembered Katsuki. He had spent years forcing Katsuki to be friends with him, and that blew up in his face. This is a new year, a new school, and a new him. He even got a new personality, for heaven's sake, so no, he is done forcing friendships. If Shinso doesn't want to get to know him, then it's his loss. He'd rather be lonely than endure another Katsuki. He opened his mouth preparing to respond with confidence and indifference, but that's not what happened at all. After all, insecurities often find a way to leak out and show themselves. Okay. His voice came out weak and disappointed, but it did something to Shinso because he looked at him so quickly when he heard the words. A range of emotions played out in his eyes, but the most evident were uncertainty and guilt. The 2 emotions he hasn't seen on anyone but his mom's face since he was 4. Back when everyone thought he was cute and they didn't want to hurt his feelings. Back when they thought he was precious and they used to humor him as he said he wanted to be a hero. Back then random people would play along to their, him and Katsuki, game of heroes and villains and pretended to be civilians in danger needing heroes to save them. Back when his tears did something to people's consciousness. How times have changed. I was going to ask Yamada-sensei for permission to use one of the gyms to train after school in preparation for the sports festival. Do you want to come with me? It looks like guilt. Are you sure? I don't want to intrude. His words did not match his tone because he sounded so excited. Sure, but let's hurry. I still want to enjoy my lunch break and get a meal from Lunch Rush. Okay, let's go, Shinsu-kun. He took Shinsu's hand and pulled him toward Present Mix office. He already crammed the school layout. They knocked on Present Mix office door. The door next to it opened and Present Mike came up, followed by the hobo hero Eraserhead. Hey listeners, do you need help with anything? Izuku waited a few seconds for Shinso to respond. When he looked up at Shinso, he saw him looking at Eraserhead with awe. He jabbed his ribs to bring him back. Present Mike sensei, can I talk to you privately? Shinso fidgeted with his finger, waiting for a response from Present Mike. Nervous. Present Mike looked at Eraserhead before nodding and opening his office door, signaling Shinso to enter. The door closed behind them, leaving Izuku with Eraserhead. It's nice to finally meet the boy who rejected a seat in my class, Midoriya Izuku. Eraserhead's voice startled him as he did not expect him to talk. He gave off an emo vibe, the I hate all humans and no one should talk to me vibe. As I said, heroics are not for me. Too much violence, and I have decided to look up other career paths. He shrugged at the last part, trying to appear nonchalant to the underground hero, but he knew Eraserhead could see through it. I find it weird that somebody could change his mind within that short of a time frame. You looked like you were doing your all to take down the bots so you can pass, not to mention the look on your face as you took down the 0-pointer. What can I say? I'm young and impressionable. With the media pushing heroics as the ideal career, is it weird that a child as young as myself would want to be a hero? I did want to be a hero, then I did some soul searching and decided heroics does not align with my future goals. Again he tried to be nonchalant, and it could have fooled anyone else, but unfortunately, he was dealing with a pro whose whole career depends on reading people. The first person to reject an offer from UA in favor of another department. You've piqued our interest, so you can understand our shock when we looked up your medical file. The pediatrician diagnosed you as quirkless, but your geneticist said otherwise. A boy who will live his life quirkless but has a quirk factor. Izuku's quirk, as powerful as it is, had a stupid drawback. It made it easier for him to feel negative emotions, it made it quicker for him to anger, hate, feel fear, self-loathe, on really bad days, jealousy, heartbreak, sadness, etc. This was so he could power up quickly, but it also made him an easy target for mental illnesses such as depression and anxiety. Something that would make a normal person cry would put him in a deep depression. He discovered this when he was planning Aldra's downfall, when all he felt was anger. The anger slowly consumed him until he ended up thrashing his own room and destroying his study table and putting a crack in his wall when he punched it. He used his quirk as often as possible in order to release excess feelings. He feels the familiar call of his quirk as Erasehead mentions his medical record, and before it can take hold, an intruder alarm rings through the hall. He turns to Eraser, who is looking outside. He turns and sees the press outside. Present Mix office opens and he comes out, followed by Shinso, who upon seeing Izuku sighed. What's going on, Shoyuta? The alarms are blaring and you are just standing here. Present Mike trailed off as he saw the press. I'll go deal with them, take care of the kids. And he was off. We still have 20 minutes left, let's go get lunch. He took Shinsu's hand before he could respond and dragged him towards the cafeteria. He changed a look back at Eraserhead and saw that he was watching them. He shrugged and continued talking to Shinso. I hope Lunch Rush is still serving food, otherwise we might have to starve. I heard his food is so good it brings people to tears. I hope Katsudon is on the menu, it's my favorite. Hey, do you think Lunch Rush should switch his slogan to, food's so good, it will make any villain surrender? It's a shame he retired. I used to like watching him beat up a villain with wooden spoons and spatulas and pans, and, bless his heart, continued to talk to himself along the way to the cafeteria. Shinso looked on as his only friend began mumbling about Lunch Rush. He wonders why Midoriya likes him. He is not cool, popular, and he doesn't have a strong quirk, so why would Midoriya choose him to befriend? He remembers Midoriya's note and how he seemed pleased with his answer. Again he wonders what's so appealing in him, what drew Midoriya to him. He likes Midoriya as he is the first person to ever hang out with him without asking about his quirk. His quirk, he wonders if Midoriya would still be friends with him if he knew what Hitoshi's quirk was. No one wants to be friends with the brainwashing kid, and he knows this little friendship will end when Midoriya learns the truth, but for now, he wants to enjoy it. He wants to enjoy the company of someone who reads him so well, who knows Hitoshi doesn't like talking and who doesn't mind. Someone who will fill the silence when Hitoshi is feeling insecure about talking. Someone who likes Hitoshi enough to be disappointed when Hitoshi turns down lunch invites. Someone who will bring joy to his day because Lord knows I deserve it after all I've been through. For now, he will enjoy the sunshine for as long as it's shining on him and for him. He will enjoy all that Midoriya is until Midoriya chooses someone else. By the end of the first week, friend groups have already been established. There were still some loners like him and Shinso who made no effort to talk to the others, only exchanging greetings. To think there was a time when he would have tried to make friends with the entire class. The world wasn't kind to that Izuku, so now he wasn't kind to them. He decided Shinso was enough, quality over quantity, plus Shinso never made him feel bad when he broke character and started mumbling. Shinso, for the whole week that he has known him, has never asked anything about his quirk, nor did he disclose his. Present Mike Sensei says unfortunately only one gym in UA is open to everyone, and unfortunately the equipment isn't the best. Apparently, since it isn't used all that often, it is not given priority in the UA budget like the other gym used by the hero students. Shinso sighed his disappointment. It was Friday and they were on their spot. They usually had lunch on the rooftop, Izuku wanting to avoid Katsuki while Shinso just hated crowds, PR'd. Present Mike has finally come back to them about the gym issue, and as Izuku expected, it was disappointing. I'm sure Mike-sensei did all that he could, but to be honest, this is to be expected. We all know UA prioritizes the hero students and the support students. The rest of us are just here to fill the extra classes and quota the government has for the school. The school budget goes to the hero students and the support students. I mean, come on, they have the manpower and budget to build realistic cities for the heroics course, but they can't replace simple gym equipment. Yes, it might have been Izuku's choice to switch course, but that didn't mean he was any less bitter. He knows all too well if he didn't meet All Might that day, this would have been his life. Looking out the window at all the cool hero students with their new shiny costumes and gadgets. Trying to book a gym that was old and forgotten. Trying to teach himself martial arts because UA doesn't offer training classes for students trying to get into the hero classes from the other departments. He would still be a loner who everyone avoided because he was quirkless, and maybe even Shinso would not have tolerated him for this long. Shinso didn't respond to Izuku's statement, and by now Izuku knows it's because he doesn't want to voice his agreement out loud. Shinso may have a lot of criticism about heroes and society in itself, but he never voiced them. Would linger for a few seconds on Izuku after every controversial thing Izuku said, and if he agreed he would turn his head and avoid Izuku's stare. If he disagreed, he would look at Izuku and raise his eyebrows before looking down as if to hold his argument down. From this alone, he knew Shinso had a rough time growing up, just like him. Shinso never voiced his emotions, and if it wasn't for Izuku's quirk, he would have thought he was emotionless. He often focused his quirk on Shinso so he can sense his emotion and know how to thread around him. Which topics are landmines, which topics made him feel at ease, which bore him, and most importantly how he feels about Izuku's mumbling. He is tired of being referred to as creepy. I can try and ask, and maybe if they see more Gen Ed students trying to train for the sports festival and get into the hero course, they will reconsider. Izuku knew they wouldn't, but he also knew he piqued Nezu's interest enough for him to consider giving Izuku one of the gyms for training. He is not above using his powerful quirk privileges to get a good gym for Shinso. Shinso doesn't quite understand his new friend. He was always friendly but never went out of his way to make friends with anyone except him. Second day, Izuku was invited to lunch by a bunch of girls in their class, but he opted to eat lunch with Shinso and even suggested making the rooftop their lunch spot. Why? Just because. He's been making lunch for the both of them because, and these are his words, "I am from Aldera, and after what happened there I always want to be careful with what I eat, though I can't resist lunch rush's food." Shinso thinks it's because Izuku knows he can't afford the fancier food on the menu and he is making food for them so Shinso doesn't feel beneath him. Izuku always goes out of his way to help him just like he is doing now. "Thanks for the offer, but it's as you said, and I don't think one more student can change the school's mind." He sighed again. He hated his quirk. Only if he got something cool like fire he could have got into the hero course without any problems. But I still want to try. He took a box of cupcakes from his lunch bag. From the packaging alone, Shinso knew they were expensive. He took one and handed the box to Shinso to pick. This was now routine. Izuku packed both their lunch, juice included, and ate dessert after. He would give Shinso the remaining dessert because apparently, Shinso needed to fatten up. And when Shinso tried to argue that Izuku was smaller than him, he took Shinso's hand and put it on his stomach. ABS. "Where do you get the money for this? I've been inside this particular bakery before and I know how expensive everything is." Curiosity has been slowly killing him the whole week, and frankly, he's had enough. "My dad. I think he is rich." "So basically you are a rich kid." He doesn't know if his luck is good or bad. To befriend a friendly rich kid. For some reason, Midoriya laughed. "No, oh no. I'm not rich, my father is. This is just my monthly merch money. My parents are separated, so my dad sends me money every month for hero merch because surprise hero merch is expensive and my mom can't afford it with her salary." "How much do you get per month?" "Enough to buy vintage, limited edition All Might figurines without checking the price. As I said, it was merch money, and as you can see I have reached the end of my hero obsession phase, so that means I have money to spare. And half the time our desserts are baked by my mom because she doesn't want me to waste my money." He took another cupcake from the box and offered it to Hitoshi. "Eat up, Shinso. I promise you will not make dad bankrupt." I don't think sugary cupcakes will help me gain muscles. Of course not, but they will fill that hole in your soul. A little dose of happiness every day won't kill. Izuku gave him a smile, biting into his second cupcake. You are my dose of happiness. He did not say what was on his mind, just continued to eat his cupcake. The door opened before Izuku could knock. It wasn't even an hour ago that he offered his help to Shinso, and now here he was. Please come in, Midoriya-kun. I have been waiting for you. The principal voice sounded from inside the room. He would have thought it was creepy if Nedzu was not the most intelligent creature, so he knew surveillance was a must for him. Good afternoon, Nedson. I assume you already know the reason for my visit. He put on Persona 3, the cocky, powerful, expected to be violent but intelligent student who did not give a f about authority. Yes, Persona 3 is basically a calm, non-violent Kacchan. He knew Persona 2, friendly, confident and powerful cinnamon roll who was unapproachable because everyone assumed he was too good for them, would not work on Nedzu. Nedzu would see right through Persona 2. Persona 3 on the other hand was what was described on his high school records and was what Nedzu expected. Nedzu studied him for a few silent minutes before giving him a menacing smile. A smile he has seen a million times on Tamura's face for it to intimidate him. The principal studied his bored face before answering him. I hear you have taken a liking to Shinso Hitoshi. The principal paused for dramatic effect. Izuku just continued to look at him with a bored face. I also hear Shinsu-kun has requested a gym for training in preparation for the sports festival. Nedzu continued. I have no interest in what he does in his free time. I'm only here because I need space to train my student. I believe you were told that the gyms are reserved for hero students across UA. And I believe sharing is caring. It's only me and Hitoshi-kun. I'm sure we won't cause much of a commotion. And I'm sure Aizawa-sensei won't mind 2 extra students. May I ask why you personally came to me, Midoriya-kun? Usually one would go to their homeroom teacher for these kinds of requests. And it's an intriguing request coming from a learner who rejected a seat in one of our classes like yourself. Shinsu-kun must be so special for you to come and ask the principal in person. With all due respect, sir, I'm not obligated to answer any of your questions. I'm just here to ask for help. And if you are not willing to provide it, then I don't see a reason for any more discussions. Yes, he was rude, but Nedzu deserved it. Izuku loved mind games, but he hated losing even more. He knows that Principal Nedzu is the mastermind of mind games, which means he will lose, like it or not. You misunderstood me, Midoriya-kun. I want to help, but unfortunately I can't. The school board is against moving learners from other departments into the hero course, so they make it nearly impossible to move. That means I can't give you the gym without approval. Approval they won't give if they investigate you and your friend. Not to mention Aizawa isn't a fan of yours. That excuse seems lacking to me. I know you have more than one gym and battle centers. We could borrow one of them without notifying the board. 2 students won't raise suspicion, not to mention that the hero course will feel even more motivated if they see students from the other courses working hard to beat them. As for Aizawa, I have spoken with him before and he didn't show me any hostility. I believe he is professional enough to work with me without any issues. And to be honest, it would be childish for Eraserhead to be beefing with a teenager. Nedzu smiled. Are you suggesting that I should keep secrets from? Nedzu was interrupted by the ringing of the telephone. He apologized before answering and instantly anger filled the room. Izuku was tempted to draw it to himself, but Nedzu's animal instincts would pick up on any change in the atmosphere. I apologize, Midoriya-kun, but I have to cut this discussion short. I'm needed urgently. Nedzu didn't even wait for Izuku to leave the room before jumping into the vents. I wonder what would make the smartest creature in Japan go into such a panic. He would get his answer that night, through a news channel. An attack on UA along with a vague description of a villain that sounded awfully familiar. Everybody listen up. I know you've all heard about the unfortunate events of Friday at USJ. As the news said, no students were hurt but 2 teachers were hospitalized. Recovery Girl fixed them up over the weekend and they are doing well and are mostly in the hospital so the doctors can monitor their recovery. With that out of the way, I have to announce that the sports festival will continue as usual. 3 weeks from now, you little listeners will compete with the other courses, and if you do well and want to, you may be moved into the hero course. Cheers went around the room from students who couldn't get into the hero course in the normal way. Shinso as usual looked bored, and one would think he achieved the art of sleeping with open eyes, going by the way he was still and unmoving for the last 5 minutes. I'm happy to see that you are all enthusiastic about the possibility of joining the hero course. And good news, 2 seats are up for grabs in 1A. One was expelled and the other decided to change schools after USJ. That's not to say that getting into 1A will be easy, so work hard and good luck, listeners. See you tomorrow. Izuku just listened on as different students discussed the sports festival and getting into 1A as they tidied up their school desks. Izuku unfortunately knew that it will be next to impossible for most of his classmates to even reach round. Breathing underwater is a cool quirk, but unfortunately, it wasn't heroic or very useful on land. Being able to heat up any part of your body would be cool if only your highest temperature wasn't 40 degrees Celsius. Being a bunny is a cool mutation unless all you got were ears and a cute tail. His classmates' quirks were all unique and fascinating, but unfortunately, not fit for heroics. He knew that 1A had already fought villains, so he knew those that stayed would be more motivated than ever. Shinso, let's walk together to the train station. Sure, but first I want to check our competition out. Let's go see 1A. Izuku, for the first time since the start of their unofficial friendship, was the one being dragged along. 1A looked shocked at the crowd outside. A blonde he has never seen before said something and Katsuki went insane. He had to be held back by a boy with dyed red hair. Shinso went to declare his challenge to 1. Mind you, this boy has no training whatsoever. The declaration was received well enough until Katsuki saw Izuku. Du. Persona 4, let's make Kacchan suffer, came to him naturally. He would have to make sure he isn't too into Persona 4 that he changes how Shinso saw him. Kacchan. His voice sounded happy enough. He even went to hug Kacchan, making sure to squeeze tight. What are you doing here, you little freak? Came to check out the place you failed to reach. A little Deku like you would never survive this course. He held Izuku by the collar before red hair restrained him. You are right, Kacchan. This class is not for me. That's why I gave up my spot as the number 1 top scorer. For you, your attitude closely resembles Endeavor, and you know how he has been stuck as number 2 forever. I didn't want the same to happen to you. I gave up my spot as number 1 out of pity for you, a position you know you would never get as long as I'm here. Aren't I kind, Kacchan, to give my shadow the spotlight? You know it's important to help those beneath you. The crowd was silent and listening to Izuku. Some seemed to find joy in Katsuki's angry red face, while others were shocked that somebody gave up their spot in the heroics course. Katsuki started fighting to get out of the red-haired's arms and even made to lunge at Izuku, which Izuku's only answer was to frown and pat Katsuki's head like a misbehaving dog. He searched through the crowd behind Katsuki until he saw Aizawa. Persona 2 came into effect. I'm sorry, sensei, he said, putting the spotlight on Aizawa. I didn't know it was a secret. I thought he already knew he took second place. Don't worry, Kacchan, being number 2 is still great. You managed to beat 35, 33 now, other students in your course. You should be proud, he said the last part encouragingly just to add salt to the injury. If there is one thing Katsuki hates is getting any form of motivation from him, the quirkless freak. He knew that Eraserhead was watching and would erase Katsuki's quirk the moment he thought about activating it. Katsuki now looked even more feral than before. Every time he tried activating his quirk, Aizawa erased it. The red-haired dragged Kacchan outside, saying something about fresh air helping reduce his anger. The remaining 1A students just gasped at Izuku. Kacchan? A pink-skinned girl asked. Shinso was still by his side, silently observing. Growing up I had a bit of a problem pronouncing the S in Katsuki, so I nicknamed him Kacchan. Oh, you guys are friends? Far from it. Aizawa sighed next to Izuku, which nearly made him scream like a girl, something the pink girl did. I should ask for a few tips. About stealth. But that's all I ask. Why? Aizawa looked tired, wrapped in bandages with his face the only skin showing. Izuku shrugged and didn't bother with Persona. I just felt extra petty today, And unlike you, I'm not obligated to treat him with kid gloves. People like Kacchan need to be put in their place and shown they are not the greatest while it's still early. Shinso stayed silent through the whole thing, following after Izuku when he tugged at his shirt. As soon as they exited the UA gates, Izuku turned and gave him the biggest smile to date. Do you think I would look good with white hair or an undercut? Huh. What the hell was happening? Izuku just gave Shinso another smile and continued walking. He was frozen for a full minute before jogging to catch up with Izuku. I think you would look good with both. Midoriya and Shinso, can you please stay behind? I have a message from Aizawa. They made eye contact with each other before going back to their seats. Izuku already knew what this was about, but he wanted Shinso to hear the news directly from PM. Present Mike took a small piece of paper out of his pocket before addressing them again. Midoriya, Aizawa considered your request and approved it, but before that, he set some guidelines for you and Shinso on how to behave in his class. I'm going to read them to you. He said, and I quote, "You can join my heroics class for your training, but if you fail any of your classes you are out. For Midoriya, for the first 30 minutes you will be partnered with one of my students, and for the remaining 1h30, you can train with Shinso. No patronizing my students, you are only guests after all. The first class is today after lunch, don't be late. Hisashi will give you the UA gym uniform. And finally, unless you want your fighting style to consist of only smashing people with brute force, don't listen to anything All Might says." The last one made Midoriya smile and Shinso confused. Here are your clothes. You still have 30 minutes out of 40 for lunch. I suggest you use 25 minutes for lunch and the last 5 minutes to suit up and go to 1A. If you are even a second late he will change his mind, so go little listeners. Izuku stood up and took his bag preparing to go to the rooftop. Let's go Midoriya. Izuku looked up at Shinso only to see him already exiting the class. He rolled his eyes at seeing Shinso in a hurry, at least one of them was excited. The prospect of being taught by All Might put a damper on his mood. He had honestly forgotten All Might works here, otherwise, he would have requested to join 1B instead. Today was Tuesday, less than 24 hours after making his request. He knew Nedzu was bluffing about the school board, that Mouse Bear Rat would never let them control him to that extent. He knew that they indeed made it hard for students to change courses, but he could pass the two as help for demonstration. He knew for a fact nobody would question why 2 outside students were part of the heroics class unless they were hurt during that class. 24 minutes later they were standing in front of 1A. Hitoshi was nervous but his posture gave off energy, while Izuku was bored and looking out the window while taping his nails offbeat. The door opened and Eraserhead came out. Hitoshi for the second time today looked fully alert and awake. His spine was straight and for the 1000th time since he was born, Izuku cursed his short genes, obviously from his maternal family. Hitoshi looked very attractive, his height, his vibe, face, voice, his everything. He is probably going to develop a crush on his friend. Good, you are here on time. The class is still changing, so you guys follow me. Hitoshi was now back to his normal self as they listened to Aizawa. They followed as he said and he took them to a shiny gym with fancy equipment specialized in quirk training. I hope Yamada read you the instructions. Rule numbers 3 and 5 are very important. Don't patronize Bakugo, please, and most importantly don't listen to the loud blonde. First 30 minutes you will be paired up with Kirishima, the redhead. His quirk is the best to check how much damage you can do. 1A arrived 3 minutes after them. Aizawa then announced the totally random pairings. All Might arrived in his buff form while Aizawa was still talking. Aizawa glared at him making Izuku smile. Izuku knew if Aizawa could he would activate his quirk, but Small Might was a secret. Izuku took a white paper out of his pocket and handed it to Shinso who opened it and gasped. That's your training regime, also called your death from now on. Unfortunately, it's too late for you to try and gain some muscles, so we are going to use your flexibility to our advantage. That is to help you with stamina and endurance, which I hope we can improve before the festival. You are supposed to do these exercises for 45 minutes, so I will be here for the remaining 15 minutes. When did you have time to draw this? Yesterday night after I went to talk to Nedzu. You went to Principal Nedzu? The Nedzu? Dog, mouse, bear, Nedzu? He was shocked that Izuku went to Nedzu personally and that Nedzu approved it just because of that. Yes, that Nedzu. He looked behind Shinso before smiling. The sparring is starting, so I'll be back. Shinso watched him go, the boy who never asked a question, who for some reason liked Shinso enough to talk to Principal Nedzu and convince him to let them join 1A, who took the time off his day to draw a training menu for him. His first and best friend. He smiled as he watched Izuku approach the red-haired boy. He took a look at the paper and started warming up. The red-haired boy smiled when he was approached. He looked friendly and kind, and if Izuku wasn't sure this was Katsuki's new friend, he would have loved to befriend him. He looked around the gym for the familiar ash-blonde hair, and when he found it he nearly laughed. Katsuki was wrapped in Aizawa's scarf, pouting as he watched everyone else spar. He turned back to the redhead who was stretching. "Hi, I'm Midoriya Izuku. Nice to meet you." He bowed a little as custom dictates. "Kirishima Ijiro, nice to meet you too. Shall we begin?" They went to opposite ends of the mat, each doing a fighting stance. Izuku was going to use anger to fuel him. It was one of the fewer emotions that came easy to him. His memories so far either made him angry or sad. Few things scared him, so it was hard for him to fuel himself with his fear. He had to harvest fear from outside. Aizawa came closer to them. He gave them the general rules of the spar before blowing the whistle for the two to start. The entire gym stopped to watch the green-haired boy who put the Bakugo in his place. As soon as the whistle sounded, the aura around Izuku turned red, something only he can see. It's to help him monitor his quirk. He felt his entire body buzz, his feet feeling lighter. Kirishima also hardened his body, which made Izuku smirk. He ran forward, only a blur as he moved toward the other boy. He kicked the boy in his hardened stomach, which made the boy grunt and move back a little. He flipped back before running towards Kirishima again and delivering 4 consecutive punches in his stomach. They were too fast for Kirishima to stop in time. Instinct forced him to protect his stomach with his arms. Izuku took the chance to kick Kirishima in the chest. The boy flew back and fell to the ground. He looked at Aizawa to see if the match was over, only to find him staring at Izuku. The red-haired felt a little fear at that. His hardening was slowly wearing off, the force of the kicks and punches too much for him. Not to mention the other boy was too fast for him to see, never mind react. He knew when Midoriya was next to him only thanks to the force of the kicks and punches. Izuku knew the moment Kirishima became wary and scared. The little black wisps coming from him, he called them to him. They were too little to make a full shield, but they were enough for what he was planning. He made 2 little shield-like discs, except they were sharp all around, no bigger than a coin. He waited for Kirishima to become steady before spinning the little disc and throwing them at him. The 2 discs grazed Kirishima in the neck, even when his quirk was on. He gasped as he felt blood drip down his neck. Aizawa decided to call off the match, declaring Izuku the victor. "Kirishima, go to Recovery Girl and have her look you over. Midoriya, you are excused from this class. You may join Shinso." Aizawa moved to the next pair, who among everyone else were looking at Izuku. He saw All Might moving towards him and quickly ran to join Shinso. He wasn't ready to deal with him, yet. He had managed to avoid and dodge All Might for 2 weeks before the number 1 decided subtlety is not his strong suit and called Izuku out in front of the whole class. He was put in a tight spot. Everyone was looking and wondering why All Might wanted to talk privately with the Gen Ed kid. He couldn't just turn down the symbol of peace in front of the whole class just because he was feeling petty. He turned to Shinso, who was looking at him weirdly, and excused himself. Aizawa was in the ugly monstrosity he calls a sleeping bag napping. Izuku had a feeling he would be following them as soon as they exited. He dragged his feet, wanting to slow down All Might a little. The hero led them to his office, closing the door behind them. Izuku looked around, noticing a red light in one corner. He knew Nedzu would be watching, but he never expected him to make it this obvious. "Young Midoriya, please have a seat." He gestured to the sofa. "I plan to make this quick, so I don't see a need for me to seat." All Might just sighed and sat down. In this form he was almost the same height as Izuku while sitting down. "You are wasting precious time keeping the facade up in front of me. Or have you already forgotten the slime incident?" USJ? I don't want you wasting your time while with me. I will never forget that day. It still haunts me how careless I was with my words. I hope you forgive me for destroying your dreams in such a careless manner. He coughed before poofing into small might. I was so wrong about you, young Midoriya. You can be a hero. Can I? Can I really, All Might? He made sure to make his eyes as wide as possible. Yes, young Midoriya, you have a heart of gold, and I was wrong for not considering that and just looking at your quirklessness. The job of a hero is to inspire all, and clearly, I have failed. Yes, you did. He was not going to go easy soon on him. He wanted to make this as hard as possible for him. All Might just went on speaking. I have seen what you can do, both in the exam and the past few weeks. You are smart and skilled, and you have the spirit for heroics, so please do reconsider joining 1A. He could see by how careful All Might was with his. He probably practiced this whole speech to make sure he did not walk on landmines with Izuku. Izuku looked him up and down, wanting to laugh at how deceptive and manipulative All Might had the potential to be. We both know you don't mean that, All Might-san. You don't care about my personality or skill or anything like that. Up until a month ago, you still thought I didn't have what it takes to be a hero. You may have offered me one for all a year ago, but we know that was out of guilt and pity. The boy who was powerless but ran into danger and behaved more heroically than anyone else. I made you feel guilty by proving you wrong, but even then you did not believe in me. You can be a hero with my quirk. That's what you said to me, remember? Back then you just wanted a vessel to pass it on to, and a quirkless vulnerable boy seemed like a good choice. I can still see your face when I said no. You looked at me like I was so ungrateful, like you were doing me a favor. You didn't think I was hero material back then, but now that has suddenly changed because of my quirk. You saw how powerful my quirk was, so you changed tune. I bet you have all these fantasies about me replacing you as the symbol of peace, don't you? The last part sounded accusing, but he knew All Might was idiotic enough to have them. No, young Midoriya, I genuinely believe in you without any ulterior motives. After all, I was once like you. Like me? He was a little confused at that. I too was once quirkless until my master transferred one for all to me. Maybe that's why I was so concerned about you. I know how dangerous heroics is. It took even me years to reach this level, to be the symbol I am, even with this sacred torch running through my veins. Izuku heard static after the quirkless word, tuning the rest of All Might's word out. The symbol of peace was once quirkless. He thought about pinching himself to wake himself from this dream. He wanted to shout, to scream, maybe even laugh. All Might was once quirkless. The one guy who was supposed to support him out of everyone because he was once where Izuku was, is the same guy who crushed his dream without thinking. Guess he forgot about the little guys when he joined the big leagues. He got a quirk and suddenly forgot that the quirkless existed. He tried to remember if All Might actively supported quirkless discrimination organizations, but he had never heard of such because if he did, then it would have been the talk of Japan for months. You were quirkless? He whispered out the question. He did not know how to react. Yes, my boy, I too was once a part of. Izuku did not give him a chance to finish that sentence, rushing out the door and running towards the UA gates. He knew Shinso was waiting for him, and as soon as he saw him, he ran to him, took his hand, and ran towards the park 15 minutes away from UA. He knew Shinso was tired, but he did not complain, just followed in the pace Izuku set. Izuku went to the bench furthest from everything and everyone. Shinso still didn't say anything, just gave Izuku his space and the option to open up whenever he feels like it. All Might is an a-hole. That surprised Shinso. He knew that Izuku disliked All Might, but he did not think it was that deep. Are you okay, Midoriya? He looked concerned. It's not every day your friend comes out the school crying and makes you run for 10 minutes. No, he wasn't. He never had a chance to have a real mental breakdown after All Might crushed his dreams, and now that he knows how fake All Might is, he is not okay with all of this. All Might was supposed to understand him, the feeling of wanting to do good but not having the power to, but instead he only acknowledged he had to support him after Izuku got his quirk. No, I'm not. Want to know a little secret? It's been eating me for months and I want to share it with someone who wouldn't betray me. You can talk to me if you want, Midoriya. Of course, Shinso would agree without questioning him. Izuku faced ahead, watching the little kids play with their friends like he used to do with Katsuki back in the day. To understand it, I want us to go back to 11 years ago when I went for a quirk test. He told Shinso everything just like he did with Tamura. He told him of Bakugo Katsuki, skimming over the bullying like nothing. He told him about meeting All Might a year ago, his secret and injury, how his quirk came in, about UA, and rejecting the hero course. He told him everything that happened that day with All Might. He never looked at Shinso once, just focused on the kids. Kami Midoriya, you didn't tell me your secret was a national secret. He ran his hands through his hair, stressed. So let me get this straight, a year ago All Might crushed your dreams and that somehow activated your quirk? You saved Baku bitch and he decided to give you some magic quirk that can be transferred. Izuku nodded, still not looking at Shinso who was pacing to the side. It was too much trauma to unload at once. You trained your quirk for the UA exam but then decided to be petty and not accept their offer. And now the UA staff is trying to convince you because your quirk is overpowered, which was how you found out that All Might used to be quirkless. He nodded again. Shinso sighed and sat back down. Midoriya what exa? Izuku. He cut in. What? Call me Izuku, you just saw me nearly have a breakdown plus you now know my life story. Okay Izuku, call me Hitoshi. Now as I was saying, what exactly is your quirk? Izuku finally turned to look at him. He has been dying to ask Hitoshi about his quirk but seeing as he rarely talked or even mentioned it, it must be a sore spot. He knew Hitoshi's quirk was probably mental and mental quirks were often discriminated against. He unzipped his school bag, took out the number 0 notebook and gave it to Hitoshi. Name? Type? Emitter. Description. A quirk that uses the negative emotions of its user and anyone else to power itself. It can be turned on and off at will and has some minor healing to it, nothing big, just bruises and scrapes. With further testing, I have discovered that different emotions have different uses according to how they make me feel. The first is anger. Anger makes me feel like fighting. I only stand up for myself when I'm angry enough, so it makes sense for it to increase my fighting instinct, which means more than tripling my strength, speed, jumps, etc. Fear is a pretty useful tool for defense. Whenever I'm afraid, I want to put distance between myself and whatever it is I'm afraid of. Never run away, just something between myself and the source. That's why I got a shield, something that will get in the way. The shield, think of it like a broken window except only the bottom is broken. The broken part will be sharp and cut whenever you try to hold it. The shield is like that, a dome that is sharp at the bottom, cutting even through metal. The shield is fit for only one person and to be honest I'm not in a hurry to expand it. The shield isn't durable and will break down with 3 sting attacks. All Might could do it in 1. I can also create this small discs that are sharp all around. I find it hard to experience fear, so I prefer to use others' fear. Hate is oppressive. It makes me want to crush my enemies and leave them begging at my feet. With anger I got aura. Aura, whenever I have enough hate to activate, makes my enemies feel like something heavy is on their shoulders. Like they can't get enough oxygen, which makes them fall on their knees wanting to beg for it. The pressure is too much for them. Sadness is my favorite. Whenever I'm sad I feel like removing myself from the situation, like I want to be anywhere but where I am. Sadness came with short-distance teleportation, a way to remove myself from the situation, but the quirk is not strong enough for long-distance teleportation and I don't think it ever will be. In all this time I have been practicing with it, its range has not increased. Jealousy? I have always been jealous of other people's quirks, always wondering which quirk I can use better than their owner. Whenever I wield jealousy, I can exchange quirks with whoever I want. The exchange lasted for only a minute and like with sadness there is nothing I can do about the time limit. There are no special requirements for the quirk exchange, but I prefer to know the ins and out of the other quirk before exchanging. I cannot exchange quirks with mutant types as that will require changing my body. I have only used it once by mistake. Toshi, is it me or is Endeavor's spawn glaring at me? The red and white boy was looking their way with such intensity that if Izuku didn't know better he would have thought he was trying to telepathically set them on fire. What did I ever do to him? He is not the only one. Izuku looked around and caught Katsuki's eyes through the crowd. It seems like you have many enemies in the hero course, and I'm sure rubbing the fact that you are powerful enough to whoop their buttes but you couldn't bother did not help. The others will also be targeting you, plus I saw a few 1B students pointing at you, so watch your back. Some of them are sneaky. They are big boys, I'm sure they will get over it. As for the others, I can handle them. They are no threat to me. He looked towards the two, and just because Izuku is a brat, he looked Katsuki straight in the eye, lifted one finger and then pointed at himself. He was going to be number one. The gesture seemed to do its job as Katsuki now looked livid. He then turned to Todoroki, who was still glaring, smiled at him and sent him a flying kiss. The other boy looked surprised before increasing the intensity of his glare. Izuku turned to a shocked-looking Hitoshi. At least now we know the sports festival will be fun. Can't wait to absolutely decimate the all-powerful 1A students. Hitoshi shivered a little seeing Izuku's smile. I pray to God you are not my first competition if I make it to the 1v1 matches. It's when Toshi, not if. I did not spend the past weeks training a loser who is not creative enough to make it past the first and second rounds. Okay, when I make it to the 1v1, but the notion still stands. I hope I don't face you anytime soon. We are teaming up in the second round, it's always a team competition, so the chances of us facing each other in our first matches will be slim. Are you sure? I don't want to hold you back, I know you are more than enough to make it past the second round. Yeah, I'm sure, but just so you know, you are on your own in the first round, so good luck. Present Mike welcomes Midnight, who will be the chief referee. She starts introducing the classes, putting more emphasis on Class 1A, which seemed to annoy the other classes, especially 1B. Then it was time for the top scorer to make a speech, and because teachers seemed to be out of touch with student emotions, Midnight did the most humiliating thing to Katsuki. This year, the speech will be made by Bakugo Katsuki, our second top scorer in the examination test. The top scorer in both the written and practical test, Midoriya Izuku, unfortunately, declined the hero course in favor of Gen Edition. The entire stadium gasped. So that disqualified him for the yearly speech. So please welcome on stage, Bakugo Katsuki. The entire stadium was too shocked to clap, so when Katsuki went on stage it was dead silent, which seemed to enrage the praise-loving Katsuki. He gave a short speech about beating the little Deku and putting him in his place and winning the festival, and went back to join his group. The stadium seemed to come back from their shock during his speech, giving a polite clap while murmuring among themselves. With that little speech from Midnight, I'm sure all eyes will be on you, especially your fights, Hitoshi whispered as they watched everyone murmur among themselves. Now let's get this festival started. Midnight voice sounded. The two parted ways, and he felt eyes following him when he went to the back. When he looked up, he found almost everyone staring at him, others looking him up and down and trying to figure out how someone like him could have gotten the top score. He was short and had lean muscles, so he didn't look all that threatening. Add in that sunshine smile he liked to give everyone like free candy, it threw everyone off. He heard the closest students arguing about whether he was Midoriya or not. It seemed like one was friends with his class's president and knew most of the learners in Izuku's class. A blonde bumped into him, looked at him and just scoffed. He recognized him from when he first met 1A. Izuku watched as different color wisps that were usually attracted to him started circling around the boy. Copy Quirk, huh? The thought of switching their quirks so the boy can only have his for a minute compared to whatever time the copy lasts does cross his mind, but he shook it off. It would be interesting to see how the blonde interacts with his quirk. After all, it can differ from person to person. The whistle sounds, and he waits for a few seconds, watching everyone run out to the obstacle course. He walks slowly, leaving the tunnel into the sunlight. He sees a fallen frozen zero-pointer bot and smiles. Looks like Endeavor Jr. is going all out. He jumps on top of the bot and then to the other side. His pace is still slow and he is behind most of the other learners. Time to show off. He powers up using anger, always anger, and goes through the first part like nothing, passing the others like nothing while avoiding the robots. The next obstacle is the fall, a canyon that must be trekked by walking on ropes. Todoroki is already at the end of the obstacles, so Izuku decides it's faster to teleport. Sitting cross-legged and going through his memories as a kid, his father leaving, the feeling of never being good enough and being replaceable. He teleports pillar to pillar, finishing it within seconds. Next is the land minefield zone. He powers up anger again. Can't get me if I move fast enough that by the time they detonate, I'm already gone. He passes Todoroki and Katsuki, who are still arguing at the start of the obstacle, the only sign that he was there being the pink dust in the air. The entrance of the stadium, the finish line, is right ahead, so like any good friend, he chooses not to enter and instead wait for Hitoshi. Present Mick's voice sounds in the stadium, yelling how Midoriya decided not to take first place and is waiting outside, something never seen before. Aizawa only grunts and says, "Problem child." He sits cross-legged outside the stadium, waving excitingly and smiling at the camera. 10 seconds later, Todoroki and Katsuki show up. They both slow down when they see him outside and chilling. Katsuki comes out of his shock faster and continues toward the finish line, coming first, with Todoroki second. The other students started coming around, and just because he loved being controversial, he started to cheer them on. Bear in mind the crowd inside the stadium, including pro heroes, are still watching. Shinso arrived much later, number 36. He didn't look as tired as the ones behind him that had a quirk that probably only worked for one of the obstacles. "I have been waiting for 7 minutes, you were too slow." Hitoshi just sighed and ran to the finish line. "I know, but I had to do the race. Without using my quirk, and the robots were hard to get past." "How long have you been waiting?" And here comes who should have been our number but decided to wait for a friend, Midoriya Izuku. Present Mick's excited voice sounded over the speakers. Izuku waved at the crowds like he didn't just defy UA tradition by not taking it seriously. "You came first and decided to wait for me. Are you crazy? This was your chance to get your name out there." "Oh wait, I forgot you don't care about the hero course." "I honestly don't care, but I think I got my name out there from the moment Present Mike started speaking." Whose name has been on everyone's minds since the start? Because it's not Kacchan's. The same Kacchan who made this year's speech and just won first place, but no one is thinking of him. They are no longer paying attention to 1A despite the fact that their primary reason for being here is them. No, everyone is thinking about the anomaly, a powerful kid with a heroic quirk being in Gen Edition. I've got their attention, and that's why everyone is currently glaring at me. Hitoshi looked around, and indeed the others were glaring at Izuku, especially the hero course kids. 1A who expected the attention to be on them, and 1B who wanted to steal the attention from 1A only for some no-name kid to do it. I chose my rank, they didn't, so they are probably bitter about it. I can see their feelings in their aura, the jealousy, the hate, the anger. I will probably be everyone's target in the next round. And it seems like fate is yet again on his side when Midnight announces the next obstacle. A cavalry battle with the 42 being divided into groups of 2 to 4, and the best part, which made his day. Katsuki as the winner will be worth 10 million points. Izuku feels the shift in the air. He was no longer everyone's target, being too focused on Katsuki. "You really don't like him, do you?" He was looking between Katsuki and Izuku. Caught Todoroki's eye before turning to Izuku again. "Of course I like him, just prefer him when he is in misery. Let's look for a third, I don't want to have to carry you alone." He looked around a bit before a pink-haired girl who looked like she is on a mission approached them. "God no, please don't get along." Aizawa's voice came through the speakers. Both the boys looked around confused. "You are Midoriya-kun, right?" the girl said excitingly while Izuku nodded. "Good, you are just what I need to get my babies noticed. Take this, take these." She started shoving various things at them. The boys just looked confused. "These are my babies which are going to take us to victory." She showed off some hover boots, a godsend since Izuku, although powerful, could not teleport people and his shield was too only fit for one person and he can't fight while carrying someone. Wait, I forgot introductions. I'm Hatsume, call me Mei. I'm Shinso Hitoshi, and that bush over there lost in his thoughts. Well, you already know him. His mind was going a million miles per hour trying to find the best way to work and plan their best route with either Mei or Hitoshi as the rider. Wait, I'm so dumb. Why am I not the rider? I can just teleport and steal points. I can also just make a big enough shield to cover the front of my head, which will prevent others from stealing from me. Change of plans. Mei, Hitoshi, you guys will have to be the horses. First 10 minutes we will be showing off May's amazing boots, the remaining 5 are for point collection. We do not have the luxury of having the perfect combo in both defense and attack, so we will get them to let down their guard before attacking. Also, we target those with smaller numbers so we don't draw attention to ourselves too much to make the powerhouse teams notice. The other 2 nodded, agreeing with the plan without any problems, Hitoshi trusting Izuku, May too excited to show off. The bigger teams will target us just because they are petty like that, so we are going to let them have the headband with minimum resistance. The 2 nodded again. Midnight started the game, and right off the bat, the teams with the most point other than Katsuki's started chasing them. They used May hover boots to run away, giving them the slip while Hitoshi taunted them. They eventually decided it wasn't worth it and moved on to other teams. May hacked into the UA sound system and started advertising the hover boots and telling them her ideas that are still in the works. They glided a few more times before they heard Midnight saying 5 minutes left. Izuku, it's time to go down. I'm not charged up enough for multiple trips, so we will be going after the 10 million points. Hitoshi looked shocked before nodding and signaling the crazy inventor to continue. He looked down and saw that Katsuki no longer had the 10 million band and it was in the hands of the copycat. He looks to the scoreboard and seems that although Katsuki lost most of his points, he is still 4th on the board. Competent a-hole. 2 minutes left. Copycat is surrounded by various different students with no way out. He hopes he does not move because Izuku has the exact same spot he wants to teleport to in his mind. He makes a grabbing gesture with his hand, and that hand comes into contact with the fabric before he is back where he started, on top of both Hitoshi and May. Copycat, feeling the absence of the fabric, shoots his hand to his neck, then looks around confused. Apparently, he is not the only one as students start looking at each other, even the teachers are confused. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, Midnight counts down the time. Izuku smiles before lifting up the 10 million band like a trophy. Midnight gasps and the scoreboard changes, putting him at the top. 5, 4, 3. Most of the students have seen the scoreboard by now, turning to him with anger in their eyes. Izuku looks around for sneak attacks but finds none. 2, and that's the end of the cavalry battles. Seems a lot of us didn't see Midoriya's band steal, so let's replay in slow motion. The screen goes to show a few minutes ago, Izuku speaking with Hitoshi. May is still speaking but now she looks distracted. The crowd watches as Izuku fades away just to appear a second later grabbing the bands around the blonde's neck before disappearing again only to reappear on top of his teammates. The teen slowly kisses the band before hugging it and finally lifting it to show it off with tears in his eyes. The crowd cheers for him. Suckers. Wow, you kissed it, Hitoshi whispers next to his ears. Had to buy time so I didn't have to show it immediately. The cameras would have caught it and immediately updated the scoreboard. A second is more than enough for a speedster to make a surprise attack. Plus the crowd's love sentimentality, the boy who seemed like he didn't care about winning, clutching that headband would pull at their heartstring. Also didn't want them to dispute our win by saying we cheated. He whispered back. And here I was thinking you were growing less petty and finally trying, but it seems only your manipulative side was out to play. Izuku has stopped hiding behind his masks ever since he read Izuku's notebook. There were 3 whole pages on his personas and which to use to get what. After reading about them, Hitoshi asked that Izuku stop pretending when he is with him. The last week was a roller coaster for Hitoshi, making him see Izuku in a new light but always shocked when Izuku does something unexpected. I'm glad you like me because I don't want to be on your bad side. May jumped into their eyes and began talking about how many more babies she got to show off now that she made it to the 3rd round. Conversing with them as if they have been best friends for years. Next are the 1v1 battles. 4 teams have already proven they are ready for the next round, namely Team Midoriya, Team Todoroki, Team Bakugo and Team Uraraka. This happens every year, anomaly teams that make the matchups uneven. This year is the 3-man Team Midoriya. As we have done before and will continue to do in the future, we are granting one member of Team Midoriya a chance to automatically move to round 2 of our final battle. Midnight excited voice sounded, the crowds cheering like the sheep they are. Now, let's hear from Team Midoriya who they want to automatically move to the next round. He already knew about this rule from many years of watching and re-watching the UA Sports Festival. The lesser the members of your team in the second round, the more advantageous it is on the final battles. A rule he forgot about when assembling the team. He observed his teammates. Hitoshi looked to be deep in thought while Mei for the first time looked like she was actually paying attention. He cleared his throat to get his team members' attention. Who wants to automatically move to the second round? Either way, I don't actually care. Mei looked up from where she was sitting, back to tinkering with her creations. I don't really care about moving to the second round. I have already advertised myself enough, and I'm thinking of using my first match to show off the rest of my beautiful babies. She shrugged after that and went back to her task. Izuku looked at Hitoshi, knowing what it meant if Hitoshi moved to the second round. He would get to show off his abilities more as he would have more attention on him, and he stood a better chance of making it into the top 3. I want to earn my place in the hero course, and that start with earning my spot in the second round. The only time Hitoshi ever sounded determined was when the hero course was brought up. Plus, I know how much everyone is looking forward to seeing you perform, so I say let's keep them on the edge of their seats, leave them wondering about Mr. Numbers. So what do you say, Aizu? Are you going to give the rest of us a chance to shine? Izuku just smiled. Can't believe he used to be afraid of even breathing next to me. Wrong, we have come a long way in our friendship. Yes, we have. Now, Your Highness, go tell Midnight-san about our decision and stop mumbling out loud. You might expose a national secret or two. His face felt hot. He hasn't mumbled out loud in months. Their friendship might have progressed indeed if he subconsciously felt safe enough to go back to old habits. He quickly went to the platform Midnight was on and told them what they have decided. Midnight looked like she wanted to laugh when he told her. Ladies and gentlemen, Team Midoriya has made their choice, and it seems they are sending the leader Midoriya Izuku to the second round. Now let's allow the AI to generate the matchups for the first round. Everyone looked at the screen and watched as pictures of the first years scrambled before the matchups were decided. Team Uraraka is her, Toko, Yuga and Tetsu. Team Tadu and Baku are still canon. Midoriya Izuku. Todoroki Shudo vs Zero Hanta. Kaminari Denki vs Shinso Hitoshi. Ashido Mina vs Aoyama Yuga. Ida Tenya vs Hatsume. Tokoyami Fumikage vs Yayoro Zumomo. Tetsu vs Kirishima Ijiro. Uraraka Ochako vs Bakugo Katsuki. Midnight announced the matchups to everyone before it was time for a 45 minutes break. He dragged Hitoshi with him to the lunchroom, excited for Lunch Rush's food. They invited Mei but she declined, said she wanted to finish working on her babies. He was busy chatting with Hitoshi when Hitoshi bumped into Copycat. The other boy just looked at him like he was scum. He must still be bitter about me taking his win. Don't touch me, filth. Me and you are not equal. The only reason you managed to get to the second round is because of your little boyfriend. You are dead weight and you must be delusional to think you will get into the hero course. He sneered at Hitoshi who looked shocked. Wow, Copycat, bitterness doesn't look good on you. Not that anything does. Look good on you, that is. He sneered back. Izuku knew how much Hitoshi wanted into the hero course, and that what the blonde was saying was hurting him. Hitoshi who never spoke about his quirk because of his fear of getting rejected. Hitoshi who was always afraid of stating his opinion unless comfortable. And like always your guard dog comes out to defend you. You know I have been watching you since the day you joined 1A, and it looks like your friend always takes the spotlight away from you. I have caught multiple displays of his quirk in action, but surprisingly I have never seen yours. Answer me this, Gen Ed, do you even have a quirk? Or are you just another useless kid using his friend as a clutch to move up? Copycat's aura now looked black, smoke rising and spreading around him like fog, bitterness huh? And although Izuku wanted to harvest the emotion, he did not know what power bitterness graded him, and it was sadly not the time to test it. He walked towards the blonde, gave him a sweet smile before punching him. He smiled when he had a crack, again at the sight of blood dripping on the floor. At least a crooked nose will look good on him. If you ever say something like that to Toshi again, I will be breaking more than your nose. After all, I am fully dedicated to my role as his guard dog. So Copycat, don't try me. The blonde just gave Izuku a dirty look before going towards the direction of Recovery Girl's office. Thanks, Aizu, but you didn't have to break his nose. I know how to deal with assholes like that, I have been dealing with them all my life. There was darkness in Hitoshi's eye, one he only saw when quirks were mentioned and people were talking about how cool they were. Let's get food, then we can head to our spot. Hitoshi nodded and followed him. They got their food and were heading towards the stairs when they heard an angry voice that sounded a lot like the current's number 2's voice. They followed the voice and they found Endeavor screaming at his child. Shudo, I raised you better than this, how can you let some nobodies upstage you? I don't think constantly beating your child up and calling them disappoints when they make a mistake is considered raising you, child, but go on. Endeavor's mustache flared up before he raises his hand, ready to hit his son. Hitoshi froze, while Shudo flinched and tried to cover his face. I was wondering what smelled so bad, turns out somebody left their flaming hot trash in the hallways. He gave Endeavor a disgusted look before attempting to look him down his nose. An attempt that failed as the man was almost twice his height. Oh, the brat that stole the grant price from my Shudo. It seems you lack manners, your father must be a weak man to raise a brat like you. The frown was scary, especially combined with his towering height and cold eyes. My dad doesn't go around fighting with kids, so I consider that a win. Also, the flame mustache looks terrible. Endeavor gave a sharp look before leaning towards Izuku. Be careful, boy, I have the power to make sure you never enter the hero society, so choose your words carefully when addressing me. Father. Endeavor gave Shudo a sharp look, silencing whatever Shudo was about to say. Good thing I don't care about hero society, so I can address trash the way they deserve. Endeavor looked shocked at Izuku's rebuttal. Hitoshi was still where Izuku left him, looking at the scene before him in shock. Their leading hero physically abusing his son while threatening another student. Endeavor gave him a brief look before giving his attention to Izuku again. What about your friend? Does she also not care about hero society? Hitoshi's heartbeat increased. Was Endeavor now threatening him? Are you threatening me, number 2? Hitoshi already knew about this aspect of Izuku's quirk, but the shock when he saw Endeavor fall to his knees. Izuku looking down at him, eyes filled with nothing but hate. He put his hand on Endeavor's shoulder, squeezing lightly. I ask again, are you threatening me, number 2? You think you can take me, boy, just because they made you believe you are special doesn't mean you actually are. The temperature in the hallway increased. I don't think I know I can. There is a reason you are still number 2 despite solving more cases than All Might. You are weak and everybody knows you are trash. You will never surpass All Might, therefore will never surpass me. There is a reason why UA desperately wants me in the hero course, and that's simply because I'm powerful and my power will continue to grow. Who knows, he shrugged, maybe in a year from now I might be able to take both you and All Might in a fight. The last part was a bluff, but he was not the rest. A battle with All Might will be a battle of endurance, which he knows he can win. Young Midoriya, Endeavor, what's going on here? Are you okay? All Might was on the other side, looking shockingly at a kneeling Endeavor who immediately stood up upon hearing All Might's voice. Everything is okay, All Might-san. Shudo, Toshi and I were heading towards our lunch spot when we ran into Todoroki-san. All Might glanced at Endeavor. We are left with only 30 minutes for lunch, so we must be going. He did not wait for anyone's answer, taking Todoroki's hand and dragging him towards Hitoshi, who was carrying Izuku's food. When he reached Hitoshi, he took a hilt of his shirt and tugged him towards the stairs. As soon as they reached the stairs, he declared very loudly how he hated Endeavor. Hitoshi only responded with an "I knows." Are you okay, Todoroki-kun? Except for the red, slightly bruised wrist, the boy looked fine. Shudo. Huh. You called me Shudo back there, other than my family nobody calls me that, I liked it. So please call me that from now on. Izuku shared a look with Hitoshi. You can also call me Shudo if you like. He was addressing Hitoshi this time. Sure, Shudo. You can call me Izuku, and him Hitoshi, we are friends after all. Friends? Yes, it's what I told All Might, remember. You wouldn't want to lie to All Might, would you? I don't care about All Might, but it might be nice to have friends. I have made none so far. Don't worry, now you have us. Are you hungry? Shudo shook his head no, dealing with his father was too draining for him. What about dessert? I brought brownies. He gave the lunchbox filled to Todoroki. Who do you have your money on, our new friend or the counterfeit Spider-Man? It was finally time for the 1v1 matches and Shudo was up first, followed by Hitoshi after. In this situation I would say Shudo. From what I've seen during practice, Shirokuin's tape is not that strong. Shudo can just burn it off of him, or simply freeze it until it becomes brittle. The environment is also not ideal for Shirokuin's quirk and movement. Shudo can slide around with his ice but Shirokuin has no tall objects he can swing around on. Let's not forget Shudo has better skill, martial arts wise. This match has already been won even without Shudo entering the ring. Izuku has already counted the chances of Shiro winning but they were low. Arrow can't make surprise attacks in this environment, and his quirk is no help at all. Shudo on the other hand has a quirk that is great short or long range. The other boy was set up to lose from the beginning. Harsh but something I've noted too. Shiro simply has no way to counter Shudo's quirk the way Shudo does his. Midnight welcomed both boys on the stage, cheers from the crowds were heard. This match will be over soon, you should be preparing for yours. After all, anything can happen when you're fighting an idiot. Hitoshi just nodded and left. He left Izuku with the rest of the class watching the match. As Izuku said, the match wasn't long at all. Shiro wrapping tape around. Shudo trying to swing him out the ring before Shudo lowered the temperature of his ice and breaking free on his cold side. He quickly encased Shiro in ice. After a few minutes the dark-haired boy gave up, giving Shudo the win. By the time Shudo melted the ice, the other boy was shivering. Next was Shinso match with Kaminari, and for the first time Izuku saw Hitoshi's quirk at work. His friend said something to the other boy before the blonde boy turned around and started walking towards the end of the ring. Before he could reach the end, electricity sparked all around him. Hitoshi seemed to know what's going on because he immediately ran towards Kaminari and kicked him out the ring, making him the winner. Ashido vs Aoyama had Ashido coming up victorious. With Ida and Mei, the girl just spent the entire time advertising her creation before forfeiting the match to Ida, the poor boy who was tricked to be her assistant. Tokoyami and Yairas, the shadow boy, came up on top. Which Izuku thought was a shame since the other girl had such an amazing and versatile quirk, but it looks like she was too indecisive. Next is Tetsu vs Kirishima, which ends in a draw that will be decided by an arm wrestling match at the end of the first round. Kirishima wins that match. The next is the most brutal match so far. The brunette who took it upon herself to call Izuku Deku upon their first meeting was up against the power-hungry Katsuki. Katsuki Middle School's behavior comes out to play as he deals with the girl just as brutally as he used to deal with the extras from middle school. The girl comes up with a decent plan, but Katsuki is simply better than her. The crowds boo at Katsuki, Eraserhead comes to his defense, typical for a teacher, but this time Izuku understands. After all, UA doesn't know middle school Katsuki, they don't know this type of ruthlessness was his whole personality back then and he wasn't afraid to display it. They don't know how much he enjoys doing this, letting this side of him out without risking his career. Without feeling so many judgmental eyes on him. Just him on top of the world, showing yet another extra their place. The sight makes Izuku feel like vomiting. Who will be the most difficult for you to defeat? They were still on the rooftop. Shudo taking friendship to another level despite only being friends for less than half an hour. The boy was laying down, eyes closed with his head on Izuku's lap. Hitoshi was also resting his head on Izuku's shoulder, eyes closed. Probably you and Shudo-kun. Oh, and Tokoyami-kun. Not counting my martial arts, you know my quirk and don't have any negative feeling towards me, so you probably won't just let me harvest your emotions easily. It will be difficult to fight a long battle depending on my emotions alone. Tokoyami has a tight rein on his emotions because of Dark Shadow, and since I can't harvest Dark Shadow's emotions, I have to depend on my own. Harvesting too much anger-hate from myself can either leave me in a feral state, where I can't differentiate between enemy and friend and attack everything that moves, sometimes even things that can't move. Or it can leave me empty, which is my biggest fear yet. It hasn't happened but sometimes I feel it, like I'm outside myself and can't feel anything. I can't hear even myself, I'm just an empty vessel. I think that's how Shudo feels sometimes, like an empty vessel. He doesn't feel anything. I've tried a few times to sense his emotions, feelings, but nothing comes up. Even when confronted with his father, the feelings of fear did not register. He flinched out of habit and knowledge of what's to come, but not fear. Maybe that's why he hasn't made any friends. He can't feel anything for anyone, and it looks like his father has ensured he is out of touch with what other teens are like, so he can't socialize depending on social cues alone. He continued to run his hands through both of the boys' hair. He knew none of them were sleeping. They didn't even bother pretending, especially Shudo. "Are you okay, Shudo?" The two-toned just nodded in answer to the lavender-haired one. "We are up next." Shudo had decided to sit with their class 1C, which they were happy about. It was just the various eyes from their class and the other classes that bothered them. "Let's go blow this sheet up." They entered the stage together, much to the other adults' surprise. Midnight went over the rules one last time before starting the match. He harvested anger as usual, but this time the power felt weaker. Acceptance, huh? It seems his friendship with Hitoshi has gradually made him let go of his bitterness and anger at both Katsuki and All Might. The 5 stages of grieving, it seems he has finally made it to the last step. He may have gone about it wrong, but he has slowly reached the final goal. If he had this revelation anywhere else but on this stage, he would have been happy. He was finally letting go of his past, even though it's unconsciously happy news at the wrong time. Shudo started with his signature move, a freezing attack, and Izuku counters with a smash that breaks apart the ice wave. Shudo creates a shield of ice behind him to prevent him from being blown out of bounds. Shudo continues to barrage Izuku with ice attacks, Izuku continuing to smash them to smithereens. The hue around him starts to get dimmer, a sign that he is going to face Quirk for the first time. It looks like he won't be able to handle an endurance match with Shudo, but the same can be said about the other boy as he starts to tremble from the cold. He wants to harvest the emotions of someone as his are not strong enough, but he knows that's almost impossible as everyone is too excited and no negative emotions around them. Shudo creates a pillar of ice he climbs in order to get closer to Izuku. Izuku destroys the ice stairs by punching the platform floor, creating strong shockwaves that destroys it. Shudo evades and jumps into the air above his opponent. He crashes down and tries to hit Izuku with a freezing punch, but he evades. Izuku is about to jump when Shudo expands his ice and it reaches Izuku's feet, locking him in place. Sadness. He is too focused on drawing sadness from within that he doesn't notice Shudo moving towards him and punching. Thankfully his friend doesn't use much force so nothing breaks. Dad leaving me and replacing me, Mom being happy about my failure to get into the heroics course, the end of my friendship with Katsuki, his treatment in school which prevented him from making friend, teacher's name calling him. He goes through different scenarios in his head, but all of them doesn't make him feel that much sadness anymore. Those that make him sad aren't enough for him to teleport. He felt cold, knew instantly that Shudo was trying to encase him with ice. He stood up quickly and used anger to jump. By this time Shudo was shivering, frost all over him. Time to go offensive. He starts to run toward Shudo, going in a zigzag to prevent Shudo ice attacks from slowing him down. He notices that, like him, Shudo's ice attacks were slowing down and not as powerful as before. Quirk exhaustion. He reaches him, feints a punch to the face, which Shudo defends, before kneeing him in the gut. Shudo hands naturally move to his stomach, which leaves his face open. Like Shudo, he also doesn't punch hard enough to break anything. He does a spinning kick to Shudo's chest, one that sends him flying towards the border. The dual-haired boy is fast to make an ice shield behind him to prevent him from getting out of bounds. Izuku's aura is now all but little wisps that keep flickering around him, and he starts to feel physically tired, another first since he got his quirk. The match is now dependent on whose quirk will give out faster, Izuku's or Shudo's. Shudo moves his feet for another ice attack, but it doesn't reach Izuku. Izuku is about to use the last remaining threads of his quirk when Endeavor shouts Shudo's name from the stands, and all of a sudden his aura comes back brighter, a mix of red and orange. Hate and anger. He doesn't bother to look at Endeavor, but his words make Shudo from Shudo, focus. Shudo turns to him, studying Izuku for a few seconds before the fierce look in his eyes comes back. Now that his quirk is back to normal, Izuku knows that he already won, but he wanted Shudo to go out knowing that he gave it his all. Shudo uses his quirk to move towards Izuku and attack, but Izuku jumps back. His quirk is now on track, so immediately after jumping back, he runs towards Shudo, speed enhanced by his quirk. He attacks him with punches and kick. He doesn't put too much into them because he doesn't want to hurt Shudo too much. One final kick sends Shudo towards the boundary again, and like last time, Shudo creates an ice shield, although it is now visibly weaker this time. Shudo is now breathing heavily and looks like he might fall at any minute. Izuku walks towards him with the intention of pushing him out of bounds. Something must be going on in his mind because when Izuku is about to push him out, Shudo's left side erupts in fire. The fire looks out of control and Izuku knows that Shudo may accidentally him. So he uses the hate he has for Endeavor to suppress him. Shudo is more tired than he though because he immediately loses conscious when he feels the pressure from Izuku's quirk. Izuku is the winner. Good job. I was watching your match live, and I'm to see you used all those moves I taught you. Izuku waved the phone in his hand while speaking, the TV in the room currently showing the match of Ida versus Tokoyami, and it seems you didn't use your quirk against her. Although the match against Hitoshi and Ishido from 1A May was not been as exciting as Shudo's and Izuku's, it helped show Hitoshi's potential to the world. It also helped that Hitoshi won the match because now the two friends were trending. Everyone was speculating and discussing how some of the pupils in the heroics course even got in if they could easily be defeated by general education students. Some were wondering about the admission test and how someone with such potential got sent to Gen Ed while others who couldn't even make it past the first challenge got in. Others were discussing the fairness of the test and how it favored some quirks over others. Izuku used his fake account, making sure to hide his IP address in case Netsu went digging, to comment and bring some issues to light, especially the fact that all the hero course students had combative quirks. No mental quirks on either of the classes. His comment opened a new can of worms as people started digging around in UA's sports festival history and noticed the same thing. Few learners in the heroics had mental quirks. I wanted to show my abilities a little, plus thanks to someone, I already knew how her quirk works. I'm happy someone appreciates my notebooks, anyway come see this. We are trending, especially after you took a hero course student without once using your quirk. Izuku showed him various videos on HeroTube, and it seems indeed the sports festival and Gen Edition duo was trending. There were even others who mentioned May and how she seemed like she could have won if she wanted to. There were even a few who suggested everyone take a fair practical test because some of the heroic students did not belong there. It seemed like there were some people, probably past students who are bitter they failed the entrance exam, who exposed UA practical exam and everyone was calling for it to change. I like how everyone wants us in the hero course, also how they are calling for UA to change their test, but I don't feel right about what they are saying about 1A and 1B. The only one they are praising is Shudo, and only because he gave you a good fight. I mean look at what they are saying about Bakugo. Hitoshi scrolled some more on Izuku's Twitter. Are these true? Because apparently some of these are from his past classmates. They are calling him all sorts of twisted and unfit. Didn't know one guy could have this many haters. Probably, Katsuki acted more villain than bully. He used to beat up people for no reason other than he is bored. All of Aldra was scared of him, some even threw celebrations when they found out that they wouldn't be in the same class as him. The teachers did nothing to help, I think they were also scared of him. The principal was desperate for a raise and he foolishly thought if one of his students got into UA, the schools was going to attract kids whose parents have big pockets. Sounds like middle school was hell for you. Hitoshi sympathized, speaking from experiences with the Bakugos from his school. It was, but I'm better now. I got my revenge after all. Hitoshi noticed the dark look in Izuku's eyes when he said that. It was accompanied by a smile that did not belong on a face like Izuku's, an evil smile. I think you might have to face Bakugo in the finals. Tokoyami won his match but Dark Shadow is weak against light, so unless Tokoyami manages to pull a miracle, he won't win against Bakugo as he is the embodiment of his quirk's weakness. That was the one match Hitoshi was both scared and excited to see. Will you be okay? You kind of slowed down during your match with Shudo. Don't worry, I will be fine. Katsuki is landfill of anger and hate, and unlike Shudo, I will make sure to break as many bones as the law allows. Another evil smile. Be careful, Aizu, you may have an advantage over him, but from looking at his matches, Bakugo is powerful and creative with his quirk. If you give him an opening, he will dominate. As excited as they both were, Hitoshi wanted Izuku to be on guard in his match against Bakugo. There is a reason David defeated Goliath. Never underestimate your opponent. Bakugo's match is over, time for ours. Izuku nodded. Like with Shudo, the two climbed the stage together, but unlike last time, neither went to the opposite side. Rock, paper, scissors, or tic-tac-toe? Tic-tac-toe may lead to multiple draws. Let's play paper, rock, scissors. Hitoshi nodded. Best of 5. Best of 5. Izuku confirmed. The whole stadium was quiet, watching the two-quarter finalist play. Izuku won the game 3-1 and Hitoshi forfeited the match. They left the stage together, and even though they actually didn't fight, Izuku knew they would be talk of the hero forums. They went back to check up on Shudo, and Izuku immediately logged into his Twitter using his real account. The sports festival was still trending, and it seems his match with Shinso had some mixed reaction. Others thought it was funny while others thought it was offensive. How was your match? The voice startled him, and he nearly dropped his phone. Shudo, you are awake. It was finally the long-awaited match, Midoriya Izuku vs Bakugo Katsuki. They were on opposite sides, Bakugo giving Izuku a feral smile, the red and orange hue brighter than Izuku has ever seen it before. Midnight goes over the rules, making sure that Katsuki understands before blowing the start whistle. Izuku harvests Bakugo's hate and anger, the red slowly coming to him. Right off the bat, Katsuki starts with a right hook, a habit Izuku has seen so many times in middle school that it's easy to dodge. The shorter boy ducks down, grips Katsuki's arm, and aims a punch at Katsuki's stomach. He tries to punch him again, but Katsuki activates his quirk on his left and aims for Izuku's head. Izuku does a leg sweep, making Katsuki fall. He tries to stomp Katsuki's arm, but the boy quickly rolls away from him before standing up. The orange now burns brighter than ever. Katsuki jumps towards him. Izuku uses the anger he harvested to jump slightly higher than Katsuki, spinning midair and kicking Katsuki down from above. The platform cracks from the collision. Izuku doesn't slow down. As soon as Katsuki shows sign of standing up, he kicks him on the side using as much force as possible. The blonde flies to the other end, coughing a little blood in the process. Katsuki, never one to give up, stands UPS. His face is all bruised, blood trailing off his chin, and his balance is a little off, but the feral grin is still in place. His hands start to spark, faster than before thanks to his quirk. Katsuki rushes at him. He throws another right hook, but Izuku knows Katsuki is not that stupid, so he sees through the feint. Katsuki twists and goes for a kick which Izuku defends against. Katsuki jumps back to his original spot. Finally, stop being so useless. Ha, shitty Deku. I will kill you and make sure my name is all that people remember from today. For a boy that was quaking and shaking at the thought of being left alone with me just less than a year ago, you sure are being forward right now. Tell me, Kacchan, do I need to give you another lesson on why you shouldn't mess with me? The last was so much fun, and look, no bats this time. Venom, that's all the words were laced with. To anyone else they may have sounded sweet, but not to Izuku and definitely not to Katsuki. Die! And Katsuki lunged towards him. His words did exactly what he wanted, blinded Katsuki for a few minutes. Too lost in his anger to think anything through, so Izuku took advantage of the minute window it created. Izuku blocked the multiple barrages of kicks and punches, and although his quirk was still active, he didn't use it to attack Izuku. Izuku jumped 2 steps back, out of reach of the assault. The popping now very clear. He glanced at their time to see how long they've been fighting, 12 minutes huh. He hasn't used his quirk all that much, and unlike last time he wasn't in risk of quirk exhaustion. Fortunately, the same can't be said about the other boy. The ash blonde was breathing heavily and his hands looked to be shaking, long-term effects of his assault last year. The blonde lifted his hand towards Izuku. Years in middle school on the other side of this hand had him panicking. He knew if Katsuki activated his quirk, there was no way he would get out unscathed. He used hate for a second to get Katsuki to drop his hand before kicking the blonde on the hand. He was not aiming to kill, so he did not use his quirk to enhance the force of the kick. The blonde fell and Izuku straddled Katsuki. Using his quirk he punched Katsuki. He stood up over the bruised up and bleeding. Using his quirk to more than triple his strength, he stomped down on Katsuki's leg, breaking it. After that it was simply Izuku bullying Katsuki and seeing how far he can go before being stopped. Katsuki couldn't defend properly with a few broken ribs and leg. His sweat was starting to run out, thus he had no offensive power. The crowds continued to cheer, apparently having learned their lesson from before with Uraraka versus Katsuki. When he had beat up Katsuki beyond recognition, he smiled a barely there smile before kneeling down next to the barely conscious boy. "Remember what I said, Kacchan? I will never endeavor zone you. After all, I know how much this means to you. So when you are out there receiving that worthless medal, remember, you are only there because I, shitty Deku, wanted you there. You are and will always be number one for as long as I like and want it so. The sun dictates how dark the shadow is, not the other way around, and you are the shadow to my sun. I'm so kind, aren't I, Kacchan?" The blonde tried to detonate his quirk, but from the wince, Izuku knew it must have hurt like hell. He stood and walked off the stage and making Katsuki the winner. Hitoshi's match against Tokoyami ended in his defeat. He may be better at fighting currently, but he was still no match for Dark Shadow. Add in the fact that his quirk, according to him, did not work on Dark Shadow as they were just a quirk. Never thought I would spend 5 minutes going through Google answers on whether Dark Shadow is a girl or boy. The odds were against him from the moment he set foot on that stage. Izuku was just glad his friend fought to the end, and did not allow Tokoyami to play around with him. "I'm so proud of you, Toshi. You basically fought quirkless and you still managed to give him a real challenge. The me from before would never." Which was true. If Izuku had entered this competition quirkless, the furthest he would go was the cavalry battle. It's still not enough, Aizu. Dark Shadow was only at half their strength and they still beat me. At my current level, I will never get into the hero course. He looked a bit sad. The results of today do not determine the results of tomorrow, Toshi. You still have a year till the next sports festival, and I'm sure you can do better then. Be proud of yourself. You managed to beat 2 hero core students with only 3 weeks of training. Imagine a year's worth. Yeah, you are right, there is still next year. He sat down next to Izuku. They were taking a short break before the award ceremony. Look at you being all smart and encouraging. He bumped shoulders with him. Shut up, everyone can see I'm the brains in this relationship. Yeah. Whereas Shudo thought you would be with him. He would have loved to, but Endeavor happened. He woke up a while ago, and Endeavor immediately demanded he be discharged so he can take him home. There was nothing Recovery Girl or I could do to stop him. Hitoshi just nodded in understanding. He is still Shudo's legal guardian at the end of the day. I'm sure Shudo appreciates us for watching over him, so don't worry. It was finally time for the award ceremony. Unfortunately, only 2 of the 3 could stand on the first-year podium. Katsuki had passed out from Recovery Girl's healing, so he couldn't be there, to Izuku's delight. Tokoyami was standing on the 3rd-place podium, a small smile on his face. Dark Shadow was hyper, moving around excitingly and then turning to Izuku for a little chat before going back to moving around. Tokoyami had to scold them before they were able to sit still and behave. "I am here." "No, please no." A disgusted look crossed his face as All Might landed before them. Tokoyami and his companion were giving Izuku a weird look. The green-haired boy took a deep breath before pasting a sweet smile on his face and giving All Might an adoring look. "All for the cameras, Aizu, all for the cameras." All Might gave a speech about how the future of heroics looks bright yada yada before giving out their medals. He gave some advice and words of wisdom to Tokoyami, who thanked him, before moving to Izuku. He gave Izuku a generic speech about working hard blah blah blah. He can read it later on the web right now. He wanted to get out of here. He then handed Izuku, who still had a smile plastered on his face, the silver medal. After that he gave another speech, this time congratulating Katsuki, who was still unconscious. The crowds cheered because All Might. The ceremony was concluded then and people started dispersing. He was heading towards the entrance exit of the stadium when All Might joined him. Young Midoriya, your fights were all captivating, but I do have to ask. Why did you stop when you could have easily taken first place? Was that you doing a favor for your friend, young Bakugo? You know he would have wanted to beat you fair and square, not by you giving him a pity win. Izuku looked around. The UA cameras, only ones allowed to film the sports festival, were switched off and most of the spectators were not close enough to see his face clearly, never mind hear him. But that's exactly why I did it, All Might. There was that sickly sweetness in his voice that tended to come out whenever he was being extra mean to the symbol of peace. Katsuki needs to be showed his place, and that's exactly what I'm doing. You should just be thankful I'm using my words to do that, unlike him who thought it was more effective with explosions in your face. All Might froze at the last part, his brain going a million hour trying to understand what Izuku was implying. His brain probably understood the words clearly, but his heart didn't. He was probably coming up with excuses for the blonde, in denial about his favorite student. I understand young Bakugo can be a bit ill-tempered. A bit? How funny, he rolled his eyes at the statement, but he has a hero's spirit. In all the months I have known him, he has proven worthy, through blood and sweat, of the title hero. Of course he did. Sarcasm. People change young Midoriya, and that's what exactly he did. He has already told me of his past, and his desire to distance himself from the person he was before. So I ask that you please give him a chance. The man stared at Izuku with hopeful eyes, as if he was expecting the boy to tell him it's all fine, that he forgave Katsuki for all the pain he has caused him. Izuku searched his eyes for a few seconds before clapping his hands, all while nodding. That was wonderful, All Might-sen, but you might want to tell all of that to somebody who cares because I don't. What was that you said? A bit ill-tempered? Oh, he's changed? Don't make me laugh. Number one, nothing he or you says will change my opinion of him. And I'm insulted you just tried to gaslight me into just forgiving and forgetting like that, tried to undermine my intelligence and made me seem like I'm holding a non-existent grudge. Let's make one thing clear, out of the two of us, I'm not the one with 3 brain cells, so don't ever try to manipulate me. All Might, I'm 1,000 times smarter than you. He saw purple at the exit. He turned to the shocked blonde, giving him a smile. I have to go now, All Might, but it was nice talking to you. He did not wait for his answer before running towards Hitoshi, but before he reached him, he stopped, turning around and pointing at the gold medal and trophy in All Might's hand. Please tell Katsuki congrats, from me, and to enjoy that little gift I so graciously gave him. He deserves everything that trophy represent. The first day back in school after the sports festival was a roller coaster for Izuku. People kept pointing at him, some in amazement and some with contempt. They were those who approached him, asking for his signature before he became a pro hero, taking photos and pretending they were great friends. His least favorite were those who talked very loudly about how he was disrespectful to UA tradition with that last match. His whole class was surrounding both his and Hitoshi's table. It was smiles all around as they congratulated Hitoshi for working hard and beating those 1A brats. He joined them, laughing and joking and going over their favorite moments from the sports festival. 2 hours passed like that. The whole class was filled with happiness. You guys are still here. Show is gonna be so mad. The whole class turned to look at their 2 hours late homeroom teacher. All of them confused by the statement. Show? The class representative said, asking what most of the class wanted to. Aizawa-sensei, the 1A homeroom teacher. Those two have been officially transferred to 1A. He pointed at Hitoshi and Izuku. What? The whole class, including the duo, exclaimed. Wait, you weren't told. I thought Nedzu already discussed everything with you and got permission from your guardians. As if he was listening in on them, Nedzu's voice sounded from the intercom requesting Izuku and Hitoshi in his office. Take all your belongings with, I don't think you will be coming back to this class. The two nodded and packed everything of theirs into their bags. The class bid them goodbye and wished them luck in their new class. They couldn't describe what they had with Nedzu as a talk, because that would imply they had a choice. What they had was a briefing, with Nedzu telling them what was expected of them now that they were moving to 1A. It seems Nedzu already knew Izuku would have no objections to the transfer because he did not bother asking for their opinions. Neither of the boys asked how he transferred them without permission, only nodding along. Nedzu wished them luck before sending them to Aizawa. Izuku did not bother knocking, merely opening the door and going in. Hitoshi had no choice but to follow. The classroom was quiet, all watching the newcomers. "You are late." Aizawa was standing in front of his class, fiddling with a small remote in his hand. Apparently Principal Nedzu did not see it necessary to inform us of this little transfer up until 15 minutes ago. "So if you have a problem, please take it to him." The tired man just sighed and shook his head. "No thank you. Shinso, you are in seat 19, Izuku, you are seat 20. The boys went to the seats and as luck has it, Izuku was next to both his friends. They both said hi to Shudo, who was looking at them, confusion clear in his eyes. "Since the new students have arrived." "Really?" The class all started speaking at once, throwing question after question at the teacher about the two students. Aizawa looked irritated before activating his quirk and glaring at the class, who quietened down. "As I was saying before the interruptions, we are going to look at the work-study offers from the sports festival. The numbers are usually balanced out, but this year Bakugo is leading by a large margin. Also, for the first time since the history of UA, offers have been extended to the general education course." The class glanced at the two newish addition to the class. Izuku did not bother looking up, his head laying on the desk. "So many," he heard Hitoshi's whisper. He lifted his head to look at the board. "Over 50 offers, congrats Toshi." The other boy just nodded, too emotional. "Look, you got over 1,000, though still less than Bakugo." The blonde in front of Hitoshi turned and glared at the two before giving a victorious smile to Izuku. "I honestly couldn't care less. I'll probably go with the lowest ranking hero just to avoid attention." He was looking boredly at the glaring boy. "Fetch your offer list before going home today, for it's time for Hero Foundation." He has seen the look in his eyes since the sports festival, hate and a hunger for revenge. Ida Tensei, hero name, Ingenium, paralyzed from an attack by the hero Stain while in Hosu. It didn't come as a surprise to him when the youngest Ida chose his internship in Hosu, the desire for revenge. He honestly doesn't know what possessed him to follow Ida into that dark alleyway. Sending an SOS message to the first contacts to pop up on screen along with his location. He kept the tracker app on in hopes that his father or friends, even classmates, would find him through it shall the fighting move from the alleyway. When he entered the alleyway, he found Ida on the ground, next to a bleeding native. He immediately sends a fire attack towards Stain, who dodges it. "Another brat? This is not your fight, kid, and I would hate to have to hurt you." "Okay, at this point I'm just freestyling all the conversation. Not my fault, I only remember the action-packed moments. Also, I was not kidding about giving Shudo a new personality. Unfortunately, the idiot laying on the ground playing dead is a very important part of my class and a great future hero. I can't allow you to hurt or kill him. A hero who prioritizes vengeance over saving a life. He is just another fake, and I can't allow him to continue down this path as he is. I have to stop him here. Then I have no choice but to fight you." What followed was a messy dance of fire, ice, and steel. A seasoned professional killer who even the heroes couldn't stop versus a hero hopeful who still hasn't mastered his quirks. Stain had experience, had time to polish his moves and find what works for him. He was fast and his knives sharp. For some reason the hero killer was playing with him, his costume was in tatters and he had cuts everywhere. His left side was overheating and right side starting to frost. His breathing was heavy and his feet felt like lead. Stain liked his knife and he immediately felt paralyzed. He tried to use his ice to stop the incoming knife, but he was too slow. "You are a good kid, but if I let you walk down this path, society will slowly poison you until you are one of them." He walked over to Shudo, gripped the knife in his shoulder, but before he could pull it out, Izuku's voice stopped him. "Let him go, Stain." Izuku's voice sounded scratchy, and his eyes looked red. "Midoriya Izuku, the boy who dislikes All Might. I saw that look in your eyes when All Might was addressing you. Let him go, Stain. Now." The moon illuminated him perfectly, and it might be his dizziness, but he could have sworn he saw Izuku's shadow move. Stain chose not to listen to him. All Might is the only true hero left, and I refuse to let a brat like you disrespect him. He pulled the knife in Shudo's shoulder, causing him to scream. And maybe it's that scream that caused all of this, because Izuku's shadow started moving frantically. Die 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 die. Izuku began chanting the word, and in the moonlight, his eyes glowed red. Izuku's shadow seemed to come to life, standing behind the boy with a twisted grin on its face. It had its hands on Izuku's shoulder, eyes glowing red, and it seemed to be chanting the same word, albeit a little quieter. Die 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 die. The boy and the shadow moved in sync, the shadow seeming to teleport to the other side of Stain. They were fast, not as fast as he was in the sports festival or in training, but he was still faster than Stain. It must be thanks to instincts because Stain managed to dodge their attack just in time, avoiding sharp claws from the shadow and a kick from Izuku. Izuku! The green-haired boy did not even spare him a glance. Izuku! It didn't seem to matter that the other boy was in front of him because he didn't hear him. Die 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 die. This time Izuku was the only one to move, rushing at Stain without a second thought. Stain threw two knives at him. The first one Izuku managed to dodge and the second stabbed him in the arm. His fighting seemed to have no strategic thinking behind it, his only intent was to harm. He did not even flinch before kicking Stain, who went flying towards the wall behind him. He pulled the knife out of his arm and threw it at the shadow. Shudo did not know what he expected to happen, but it was not the knife seeming to disappear inside the shadow. Die 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 die. Stain was back up, two knives back in his hands. He jumped towards Izuku, and the fight ensured. Stain blocking Izuku's kicks and punches while trying to cut him. When he did succeed in cutting him, he never had a chance to lick the knife because he knew Izuku would attack at even the smallest of openings. The shadow was still in front of Shudo, grin still as menacing as ever. Like Izuku, its eyes were only focused on Stain. Stain decided to sacrifice his body, prioritizing liking the knife over defending. Izuku then punched his jaw, the cracking sounding so loud in the dirty alleyway. He followed with a kick to the chest, sending him flying yet again to the cracked wall. Die 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 die. The shadow was still whispering before moving towards Stain, who was kneeling on the ground coughing blood. Stain's mistake, forgetting Izuku was not his only opponent because that blinded him to the shadow that was quickly approaching him. The shadow, seeming to lack Izuku's power, kicked him in the head before delivering punch after punch to his face. Izuku! He was still chanting the word, lost to everything happening around, his only focus being Stain. Todoroki-san, you have to stop your friend before he really kills Stain. Ida was now seemingly back to normal. Seems Stain's paralysis has a time limit. He moved his arm to see if he was still under the quirk's effect, and to his luck he wasn't. His body still felt heavy and he had difficulty standing up. Every cut from Stain was now throbbing and he was starting to fear blood loss as the cuts were deep. Izuku! He did not see it coming, but Izuku did. He was in front of Shudo in an instant, his back to Stain. He coughed blood before stumbling a little and turning to face Stain again. Shudo saw the knife in his back and gasped. The shadow reappeared behind Izuku and pulled the knife out. Looks like Izuku chose to risk his health over Stain getting his blood and paralyzing him. D.D. Die. Die. Despite not reacting from the pain, it seems the knife did more damage than he thought because his friend was shaking on his feet. Their eyes were still glowing, and it seems the shadow has decided something because it was now standing side to side with Izuku rather than behind him. It took his hand and right before his eyes, the two seemed to fuse. Izuku sinked to the ground, and only a normal shadow was left on the ground where the boy once stood. Shudo watched the new shadow move towards Stain, stopping below him only for Izuku to emerge out of it, punching Stain's broken jaw and making the killer scream. So that's how the shadow was teleporting. It wasn't exactly teleporting, it was only returning to its normal state and using its speed to move towards its target. Since it is dark in the alleyway, Couldn't see it in its normal state, so to me it looked like it's just appearing out of nowhere. Izuku did not give Stain a chance, delivering 2 kicks to his body while it was still in midair. Stain looked ragged and ready to fall, but instead of giving up he threw a knife at Native's body before running out of the alleyway. Another mistake from Stain, assuming Izuku cared for everyone currently in this alleyway. The boy did not even blink when Native screamed from the knife stabbing his leg. Instead he followed the running villain out of the alleyway. Shudo, for once since this whole thing started, felt like laughing. The image of a beat-up Stain running away from a 15-year-old, it's just too hard to resist. Most of them thought they were hallucinating, maybe they were too tired from fighting the Nomus and were now seeing things. There was simply no way this was the hero killer. He was limping, his face was busted and there was blood trails at the corner of his mouth. Has old age finally caught up to me? Or is that Stain, the hero killer, running towards us? Gran Torino said from beside Endeavor. I thought I was hallucinating. Midnight said. Before any of the heroes can even charge at Stain, somebody emerged from the ground and kicked him hard enough that he flew towards them, landing at their feet. Die 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 die. The somebody, who they all now identified as Midoriya Izuku, said. Die 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 die. He disappeared only to reappear again beneath Stain, kicking him with enough power for his body to lift off the ground, coughing blood. Midoriya, stand down. The boy seemed to not hear Endeavor, in fact he never glanced at them even once. The boy was too lost in whatever it is that put him in this state, his only target was Stain and nothing mattered other than him. Izuku. Shudo Todoroki was using his ice to move towards them. His clothes were in rags and he was covered in blood. Midnight, put him to sleep or he won't stop. He shouted to his teacher. Her sleeves were already torn from using her quirk to put hysterical civilians to sleep, so she activated her quirk. Seemed to work as the boy stopped chanting and was now just standing there swaying a little. Shuto, where have you been? Endeavor, naturally loud and imposing, stomped towards Shuto. The dual-haired boy flinched at the volume and tone. The other heroes did not see him move. All they saw was Endeavor flying towards a newly vacated building with Midoriya Izuku standing in defense in front of Todoroki Shudo. He was quiet and looked to be asleep, but the aura he was giving out was terrifying. The message was clear to everyone watching. Touch Todoroki Shudo and you are dead. Todoroki Shudo stumbled all the way to Midoriya, but the other boy's focus was on them instead. As soon as he reached him, Shudo hugged him from behind before gently talking to him. Izuku, I'm not sure you can hear me, but you have to stop now. I am safe, you stopped the hero killer and protected me, but it's over now. We both have to get immediate medical attention or we'll die. That means you have to let the heroes come closer. He seemed to hear him because he relaxed a bit. Die? He whispered. His voice was almost back to normal, and the red glow seemed dimmed now. Yes, we both need help. Izuku was almost back to normal, but then Endeavor happened. He was back, with his quirk activated and was moving threateningly towards Izuku. One look at him had Shudo's hard work out the window as Izuku tensed up again, eyes now glowing brighter than before. Eyes you. A familiar voice shouted before Endeavor's fire went out. Hitoshi ran towards them, dodging all the heroes who attempted to stop him. Unlike what they were expecting, Izuku did not fight the lavender-haired boy. It had the opposite happening. Izuku relaxed in Shudo's arms, his eyes going back to their usual green. Sho. He glanced back behind him, looking relieved to see the ice and fire user. Then he looked at the approaching boy who immediately hugged both Shudo and Izuku. Toshi. Sleep, he gently whispered to Izuku before the boy went limp in their arms. They put him down, the blood stain on his back getting bigger and bigger by the second. Shudo laid beside him, turning his head to look at both his friends. Sorry to once again do this to you, but you will have to look after both of us for now. So Toshi, I'll once again be in your care. He then followed Izuku into Dreamland. Most of Hitoshi's offers made sense, all except one, Endeavor. He got offers from heroes whose fighting style did not incorporate their quirks. Most of them were underground, so it made no sense for a quirk-reliant Endeavor to send an internship offer to him. He is still bitter about that day. He is probably planning to make the week hell for you, Shudo had said when Izuku mentioned getting a familiar offer from the hero. Izuku's list was the most interesting out of the three. Most of his offers were underground, but those from the Spotlight heroes, those were interesting. For offers from the top 10 including Endeavor. All the other offers were from the top 100. I still don't understand how Bakugo got the most offers. Hitoshi had wondered out loud while going through Izuku's offers. It makes sense. His matches were all interesting to watch. He used his quirk creatively and showed off his quick thinking when needed. He is also good at finding his opponent's weaknesses and capitalizing on them. He might have lost against me, but Katsuki is still a force to be reckoned with. Shudo would have got the most offers but unfortunately did not make it into the finals. I got fewer offers because other heroes did not think it was an option to extend offers to Gen Edition. News travel faster underground, it's probably why we got most of our offers there. They probably heard from Eraserhead that we will be transferring and decided to steal us before the Spotlight heroes got wind of the news. The other Spotlight heroes probably called the school to ask, an option the less known heroes don't have. Are you okay? You just praised Bakugo. Just because I don't like him doesn't mean I can't see his potential. Izuku had said while rolling his eyes. Hitoshi had chosen to intern with Eraserhead, who secretly slipped his offer in Hitoshi's bunch. His body was currently sore, but he never regretted his choice. Shudo chose his father because he is the best fire-based hero right now. True to his word, Izuku had chosen to intern with a lesser-known underground hero that is based on the outskirts of Hosu. Izuku was constantly worried and checking up on Shudo, asking for detailed recounts of his day and Endeavor's treatment. They had just finished talking with Shudo an hour ago when the Hosu news hit. A few minutes later Izuku called, worried about Shudo, who was supposed to be patrolling Hosu with Endeavor. Hitoshi was busy reassuring Izuku when they received the message from Shudo. Hero killers send help round Pushpin. Izuku had gone insane after that, immediately hanging up. The track app showed he was heading towards Shudo's sent location. He had to ask for help from Aizawa, who began muttering something about problem children before telling Hitoshi to go to the car. Thankfully the roads leading to Hosu were empty due to the attack. Hitoshi was listening to the live coverage, hoping that they would mention one of his friends or anything about the hero killer. He is moving. Turn left here. They arrived just in time to see Endeavor flying towards a building. Shudo was hugging a glaring Izuku, whispering something to him. They were both bloody and their clothes were destroyed. Izuku's eyes looked red. Without intending to, he shouted Izuku's name, dodging the present heroes trying to stop him. The other boy froze before slowly turning to Shudo, whispering his name before answering Hitoshi. Last night was tiring for him, but his mind did not allow him to sleep. Standing guard outside his friend's room despite Aizawa reassuring him so many times that they were all right. His mind did not allow him to forget just how bloody the two were, especially Izuku. Recovery Girl was called, but the two did not have enough energy to heal all their wounds, so they prioritized the most fatal. Eraserhead stayed up the whole night with him, constantly telling him the boys were going to be fine when Hitoshi got too frantic. Endeavor, who was still angry about Izuku kicking him and Aizawa canceling his quirk, chose to go home and personally tell Shudo's siblings about the attack. Stain, whose face was beaten beyond recognition, had to be hospitalized. He will be taken to prison as soon as he was healed enough. Ida, who was the least injured, was asked by the heroes and police to recount everything up until Stain approached the heroes. Most didn't know how to react because nothing said seemed possible, but they knew he was telling the truth. The police told them they would be back when the boys woke up before leaving the two. When not drinking coffee or reassuring Hitoshi, Eraserhead was on the phone speaking with either Nedzu or Present Mike. He already knew Izuku and Shudo were in trouble, but he was still shocked to see Commission Agent talking to one of the nurses. They kept glancing at Izuku's and Shudo's door, making Hitoshi tense up every time. All the online forums he was in were discussing the three. One of the news caught everything on tape, from the moment Stain appeared up until Shudo passed out. He had watched the video 1,000 times, Izuku fighting, beating up, and injured Stain, him attacking Endeavor when he made a move towards Shudo, him standing guard in front of Shudo, their hug at the end. It was all a shit show. The only thing he was thankful for was that the two were still alive. He stayed up the whole night. The two woke up the midday the next day. But I already said I'm sorry and Kacchan. No, I'm not trying to manipulate you by calling you that. How can you even suggest that? No Tomu, I'm not pouting. That's for little kids. Please don't tell Dad. I'm also allowed my own privacy, and you already know why I didn't tell you. Okay, I'm sorry for keeping it a secret. Oh, don't act better than me. I don't ask about all the weird guys you try to hide over there. Wait, I'm sorry, I promise we'll tell you when I get home, just don't tell Dad. You are so impatient. Wait, let me find a private place. Shudo and Hitoshi just listened to the one-sided responses in silence. They both knew Izuku had a brother as he often mentioned him in conversation, but it was still a surprise to see him act this way. It hasn't even been an hour after Izuku woke up when his brother called, and contrary to what the boy was saying, he was definitely pouting. He had wireless earphones in and was giving his brother the puppy look through the screen while answering him. Yeah, I must hurry if I want to sneak out before the nurses come back, but first let me introduce you to my friends. They were also in the picture online. And stop giving me that look. How many times do you want me to apologize? He turned the camera to Hitoshi first, and a pale, red-eyed, blue-haired man was shown on screen. Tamura, this is my first real friend, Shinso Hitoshi. No, you don't count an Kacchan, you are my brother and that's slightly superior. Hitoshi, this is my older brother Midoriya Tamura. Izuku smiled slightly before nodding. Coming from you Tomune, that's a compliment. Hitoshi just waved to the boy before the phone was moved to Shudo. Shudo, who immediately froze upon seeing the boy on screen. His eyes looked as they did that day in the hallway, as if he is reliving a traumatizing. Tamura, this is Todoroki Shudo, and yes, he is Endeavor's child. No, I still hate the trash called Endeavor. Shudo, my brother Midoriya Tamura. Shudo was still frozen, becoming even tenser by the minute. I must go, we'll be back later, so cover for me. He waved to the boys before jumping out the window. Those eyes, I would know those eyes anywhere. Shudo, are you okay? Shudo still looked spooked. Hitoshi had to gently shake him to get a response. Those eyes nearly killed me. Shudo. Shinso activated his quirk, feeling the mental connection snap into place. Shudo eyes went blank. Shudo, who was that on screen? The USJ attacker and Izuku's brother. Are you sure? I thought Izuku said his brother was in America. Red bloody eyes with blue hair. I was close to him during USJ, so I can recognize those eyes anywhere. He let go of Shudo. Do you think Izuku knows? I don't know, I hope not. What are we supposed to do now? Do we tell Izuku? What about the heroes? You think Izuku will forgive us if we send his brother to jail? I don't know. Jesus, this is a mess. You saw how he got when Stain threatened you, and he's only known you for 2 weeks. He doesn't even respect heroes, so imagine how he will get if the heroes threaten his brother? We need to bring in an adult. This mess is too big for us. Shudo nodded. But who? They both sat in silence, contemplating who is trustworthy enough to tell. Hey guys, can you believe it? Izuku shouted as soon as he stood up from jumping into the room through the window. Oh my god, Tamura says he and Dad are coming back to Japan. I have only seen him in person twice because our parents divorced when I was younger. Mom doesn't like me interacting with Dad. Shudo seemed to have frozen again, so it was up to Hitoshi to handle the situation. He had 2 options, tell Izuku who his brother was, which he didn't have the heart to since his friend was so excited, the most excited he has seen him since they befriended each other, or hold of telling him until they got an adult aka hero involved. So he just gave Izuku a small smile as the boy began rambling about his brother and all the places they could visit together along with all the cool arcades. UA bought him as much time as they could, but they all knew the commission was coming sooner or later, and as much as Izuku dreaded the visit, he wanted to get it over with. The agents were finally allowed to talk to him 2 days after he woke up. They were 2 of them, a man and woman. The woman was tall with pitch black hair and equally darker eyes. She looked stern and she seemed to look down on Izuku. The man was just as tall with navy blue hair and brown eyes. He looked kind with soft eyes. As soon as they introduced themselves, Izuku felt a sense of calmness wash over him. Somehow the two now felt familiar and somehow trustworthy to him. The man was giving Izuku a kind smile, so deduced very quickly that it must be his quirk that made Izuku feel like this. There must be some passive aspect to it that made him seem kind to make it easier for the quirk to take effect. For as long as he was under the agent's quirk, he won't be able to use his. He needed negative emotion for his quirk, and as long as his emotions were controlled by the agent's quirk, he can't use his. He was going to be charged with breaking quirk usage law, assault, and attempted murder, but lucky for him Endeavor and Stain, who was taken to Tartarus yesterday, decided not to press charges. He thanked God Endeavor was prideful because if he pressed charges then Izuku would be in juvie right now. As for the quirk usage, Yue more like Netsu negotiated for him, along with his now favorite hero memory, arranged for him to do community services for 3 months instead. All Might, who was being useful to Izuku for once, made a whole speech to the public about him not being able to properly guide Izuku and failing as a teacher. The public ate it right up. They wanted to make their idol happy, so they were all willing to forgive Izuku. The news even started making excuses for him, some praising him. He was scared, his friends were getting attacked, he panicked. Though he was stopping the hero killer, his potential as a hero is off the chart. He is the hero who defeated the hero killer. He is just a teen, imagine his panic. It must have been the chaos in Hosu. It was almost funny how quick people were to change tune. From calling his violent and unheroic to excusing his action just because their hero said something. The ones who disgusted him the most were the hero forums he was a part of. They were discussing his quirk. Others were wondering what exactly was his quirk, while others called his quirks heroic and calling him the next All Might, saying him defeating the hero killer was a show of his strength. All these comments really showed why people worshipped Katsuki. It disgusted him how people can see such an act of violence and still think he was heroic. It was so tiring. Exam time was coming and the whole class was in chaos, especially the idiot squad who kept complaining about not having enough time. Ida was busy doing his robot arm to reduce the noise in the class while they were waiting for their next teacher, who seemed to be late. Uraraka, the girl who called him Deku in their first meeting, kept throwing glances at him, which Izuku chose to ignore. The girl, much to Izuku's annoyance, kept clinging to him and trying to force herself into their friend group. He was this close to telling her off. Thought I'll never see the day Izuku Midoriya dedicated himself to anything Yue. Currently Izuku was trying to draw up a study timetable focused on his weak points, but at this point it was more a revision timetable since he already knew everything covered this term. Remember what I said, I'm going after everything including his position in class. I'm aiming for the #1 spot in both written and practical. I want to remind him that he will always be below me. Midoriya-kun, deep breath. Uraraka-san? The question sounded innocent despite the fact that he wanted this girl out of his sight as soon as possible. We were wondering, since you got the highest grades in the entrance exam, if you could help us, maybe tutor us if you have time. The whole class went quiet, everyone seeming to be waiting for a response from their irresponsible classmate. No. The girl gawked at his response, various emotions playing out at her face from the shock of the blunt denial. I said no. But Deku-kun? That name again, and the beach wonders why Izuku doesn't want to be friends with her. Uraraka, what does this look like to you? He held the incomplete study table to her face. A study table. Good girl, he rummaged through his bag before taking out a huge file. And can you skim this over and tell me what it looks like? She quickly turned the pages. A folder focused on history, including exam guides and case studies from outside sources along with notes from you. Good, Kaminari-kun. Ashido-san, do you have anything resembling what Uraraka-san mentioned? They both shook their heads no. And why is that? You had several months to prepare yet you didn't. Will you depend on Yaoyorozu-san and Ida-kun for the rest of your time here? Were you planning to take advantage of their generosity forever? Hey shitty do you, why don't you shut your mouth? Oh, is Kacchan coming to the defense of his minions? How times have changed, but you are smart enough to know I'm right. They are lucky Yue values quirks more than brains because otherwise they wouldn't be here. I'm willing to bet they are hundreds of kids who are 20 times smarter than them but failed the exam because their quirks were not suitable for fighting robots. Midoriya-san, that's enough. The original 1A- Shuto, who looked unbothered and bored, were all staring at him weirdly. He knew some knew he was right, but now they wanted to defend their classmate. "You are right, Ida-san, I was out of line, Ashido-san, Kaminari-kun, I apologize for my hurtful words." He stood up and bowed. The two just nodded, neither accepting or rejecting his apology. They went back to their seats, the mood of the whole class, except Shudo, ruined. For the rest of the day, the two along with Uraraka were quiet. The written exam came and went, the whole class managed to pass, including the now dedicated to their work squad, previously known as the Idiot Squad. It seemed they also knew they passed the entrance exam thanks to their quirks. Next was the practical exam, which most thought would be robots again before Hitoshi that idea down by pointing out that Izuku can destroy 100 robots in 5 minutes, and Nedzu was not stupid enough to set that test knowing this. The day came, and as Hitoshi said, it was not robots they were fighting but the teachers themselves. They were paired up and were supposed to fight one of their teachers who were handicapped. Surprise, surprise, Izuku was paired up with Katsuki. This was All Might's idea, wasn't it? He addressed Aizawa after he announced the pairing. The man said nothing, but Izuku was not asking, he was simply confirming. Why would you listen to him? You of all people know he is an idiot. Aizawa sighed and closed his eyes. The class has been keeping a distance from him ever since that day, so no one was close enough to hear his statement or Aizawa's. I'm going to be honest with you, kid, currently majority of the class does not want to work with you and we can't pair you with your friend. We are also hoping that this will help you work on your relationship with Bakugo. The other matches played out as in canon. Shinso took Mineta's place in the fight against Midnight and they won. The last match was Izuku and Katsuki against All Might. He could already tell by the feral look in Katsuki's eyes that this could only end in disaster. He knew Katsuki feared him a little, but he also knew Katsuki was not the type to just roll over and die just because he couldn't get his own way. Their match would be an exhausting one. He had to work with uncooperative Katsuki while facing the muscles for brain All Might. He knew everyone was looking forward to their match, thus why they were last. If this was just practice, he would have made sure to give in zero effort. As soon as the start sound came through, they both began walking towards the opposite side where All Might was supposed to be. Katsuki was sulking as usual, so Izuku let him walk ahead as he was not ready to deal with the drama. 5 minutes, that's all it took before Katsuki spun around and growled at him. At this point Izuku was impressed that it took him this long, because the Katsuki from before would have exploded immediately. Stop following me, you nerd. Ha, funny, but I'm not following you. In case you didn't know, you don't own this road so I can use it whenever I want. You've always been like this, creepy Deku, always following me around, and here I thought you left that annoying habit behind when you followed me to UA. Wait, what? Did you say I always followed you around, because I seem to remember things differently? But Katsuki wasn't listening to anything he was saying, as he continued. You always followed me around like a creep since we were kids. I gave you multiple hints to leave me alone, but just like a creep you never read any of them, busy following me around with that sickening, Kacchan is so amazing, like I'm trying to impress you. But now I see you were looking down on me all along, hiding your quirk to make me look stupid. Are you delusional, Katsuki, or are you just plain stupid? Who are you calling stupid, you nerd? Izuku has spent years taking Katsuki's abuse, so he recognized all the signs from Katsuki. The slight turning of his wrist just in case he has to use his quirk, the tensing of his leg muscles, the way his eyes changed shape slightly. He recognized it all, so he already knew either a punch or a kick was coming. The likeliness of a kick was low looking at the way his legs were positioned, so only a punch was likely. Katsuki never went for the face or neck, so he knew he was going to punch below that. What was the quickest way to shut someone up? A punch to the stomach, which Izuku stopped before retaliating with his own punch to Katsuki's stomach. The blonde fell down to his knees while holding his stomach. Let's get one thing clear, Bakugo, I'm not the creep here. I stopped following in elementary school when you burned my skin so bad, I had to be taken to the hospital. I stopped following you when you beat me up so bad, I had to use crutches for a week. I stopped following you when you screamed to everyone at the top of your voice that I'm a creep and that anyone who befriends me would feel your wrath. You know who continued to follow me like a creep despite me trying my best not to get in his way. You seeked me out at lunch, even in my hiding spot like you were a hound after my scent. You are the reason I walked to school because you would always make sure to arrive early at the station and wait for me outside, just to beat me up before school. You would always follow me after school just so you could corner me in an alleyway. You know who always knew if I talked to a classmate or even a schoolmate. You were so creepy you even knew if I had recently talked to someone from school, word for word. You are disgusting and delusional enough to make up scenarios in your head where I'm the creep and not vice versa. I can't believe there was a time where I thought you were amazing, but now my eyes are open. You are nothing but a villain under the delusion that he is a hero. Young Midoriya, that is unheroic-like. Please stop immediately or the school will have to take action. He did not even notice All Might was here. Please refrain from speaking to me about being unheroic after what you did to me, All Might. Or did you forget about our rooftop conversation? Because I haven't. What was it that you said? You need a quirk to be a hero. Some villains just can't be defeated without a quirk. Fun fact, did you know that before our conversation, that the all-heroic Katsuki here told me to jump off a rooftop and hope for a quirk in my next life? I wonder what would have happened had I jumped. Would I be just another face All Might has come across? Would anyone even care? And most importantly, would our dear Katsuki even be alive right now? He was too far gone and he knew it. There was absolutely no way he could take back what he said. His words today would change UA forever, and he had a feeling it will be in a bad way. The 5 stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. He may have gone through them wrong, but he has gone through them all. Denying Katsuki's words, bargaining with the heavens for his quirk to show itself, the depression through middle school, the anger at everyone, and he had finally thought he was ready to accept his past and move on from it, but it turns out that's impossible. In the sports he had thought he was finally beginning to forgive everyone who had sinned against him. That he was finally beginning to heal, but it turns out the wounds were still fresh, they were just not being touched and therefore not painful. Katsuki had touched them today and All Might just made it worse. UA is every child's dream, yet only 2 people from Aldra applied here. Aside from the trigger situation, you want to know why? Because our dear Katsuki here can answer you. Katsuki was still on his knees, face low and embarrassed at the thought that everyone now knew his past. All Might was in the same state, except he was not on his knees. The match has been called off. You are all to report to the principal's office right now. Aizawa looked angry, whether at him, Katsuki, or All Might, Izuku could not tell. They all followed quietly. Chapter text. Midoriya, you're next. Despite how much Eraser had rushed them, 2 had to wait outside because after what was unloaded today, they couldn't be in close proximity. The first to go in was All Might, followed by Katsuki, and now it was finally his turn. Aizawa, despite how much he looked like he wanted to, had to wait outside with the 2 teens while All Might talked with Nezu. He of course went in with Katsuki, and now it was finally his turn with the 2. His anger and hurt had cooled down by then. He honestly did not regret anything he said or how he said, it was the truth and his soul needed that venting moment. His quirk, which he had ignored during his rant, had cooled down by now. He took the offered chair, declined the offered tea. The atmosphere around them was tense. Izuku guessed the 2 adults did not know what to say to the boy. Midoriya-kun, before we begin, I want you to know that UA has 0 tolerance for bullying and discrimination. So does Aldra, he replied. The 2 adults froze, knowing very well what his was implying with his comment. All schools were the same. Midoriya, I can assure right now that Bakugo will receive punishments for his past behavior. Both him and All Might will face consequences. The principal tried to assure him. Consequences? Punishment? Please don't insult my intelligence because I know exactly what is going to happen. UA has to preserve its reputation as the best hero school in Japan, and Bakugo has a quirk that could place him in the top 10 within 5 years, so I don't see you expelling him. Add in the fact that he is from Aldra, him getting expelled would bring bad publicity to the school, and I know you will never choose to let that happen. On the other hand, All Might is the #1 hero, so you can't just expel him without a valid reason. Even with a valid reason, the Hero Commission would never let you. Yes, that is true, but he held up his hand, shutting Nedzu up. I'm not done. Taking in all that into account, let me guess their punishment. All Might will have to attend useless workshops on discrimination and quirklessness. You are also going to force him to get a teaching license so he could learn to interact with the students better. Oh, I almost forgot, you are going to make him apologize to me and use his platform to combat discrimination against the quirkless as punishment. Am I wrong, Nedzu? That's right. Katsuki, darling heroic Kacchan. You made him an appointment with Hound Dog in order to help him work on his anger issues and aggression, which to be honest is funny to me. Like, why do you all think Katsuki has some deep buried trauma? Because I grew up with him and I can tell you now, Katsuki is an a-hole simply because he wants to. The only issues I can see with him is his superiority and inferiority complex. To be honest, I don't know how anyone can have both, but Katsuki has always been amazing like that. Now on to me, I would have had to attend sessions with Hound Dog to deal with my trauma. You were going to reassure me and apologize on their behalf while giving me a whole speech about being on my side. After the whole speech you would have politely asked me not to discuss what happened with the two with anyone else, and had I refused you would have dropped hints about getting Hitoshi out of one. Am I wrong, Nedzu? Because if not, I'm walking out of this room right now. I would never threaten Shinso, was the rat's reply. Then we are done. He looked at Aizawa, who didn't meet his eye. Don't worry, Aizawa, I didn't expect much from Yue, or you. And finally, their eyes met, and Izuku could see the sadness in his eyes. It was the truth though, he did not expect much from anyone anymore. Yue was no different from any other school. He has heard the zero tolerance for discrimination spiel before, whether from Aldra, his elementary school, or the local grocery store near him. Talk like that no longer meant anything to him. Everyone wanted to look good in the eyes of society, in the eyes of the beautiful Inko, even when it meant lying. He headed straight for the rooftop. Inko-san, don't worry, it's just a little roughhousing between children, said a teacher when Katsuki dislocated his shoulder. Izuku is just more sensitive than others, said the principal when Izuku was sent to the hospital and had to get stitches. He heard the same bullshit from the grocery store owner who flirted with his mom, the same owner who charged him twice the price simply because he was quirkless. He was used to the lies, to the lack of punishment for Katsuki, used to him always being the one to suffer. In a way he expected today's outcome. So why did it hurt so bad? Why did the knowledge that his tormentors will continue to live life like usual hurt? He had found temporary peace when he brought down Aldra, but he knew that that peace wouldn't last. Not when Katsuki was happy and living his dream like nothing happened. Not when All Might refuses to admit his mistake, not when he is unwilling to truly apologize to the young boy on that rooftop. The little boy who he left alone to die and be buried on that rooftop. It hurt, it made his heart ache so bad. So, he let himself cry, all alone with no spectators to reassure him that he is going to be fine. He let himself cry, and it felt just like a year ago when he was all alone. When there was no Shuto, no Hitoshi. He let himself cry just like the days he couldn't call Tamura because Izuku had to be strong. He let himself cry like he was back in his room and his mother was working the night shift. It hurt to feel so powerless. He did not have high expectation of Yue, but the knowledge that his trauma will be swept under the carpet, and they are forcing him into therapy for the sake of their reputation was upsetting. I want them to hurt like I did, like I still do. When will it be their turn to cry helplessly like I am? Fate was never on Izuku's side. He knew that he couldn't wait for normal karma. So, he decided once again he was going to have to deliver it himself. Chapter text. Izuku finally understood loyalty after a week of being absent from school after that episode. Loyalty, trust. It seems they ran so deep in 1A that even after they learned Katsuki's true colors, they were willing to forgive and stand by him. He almost felt like an imposter in the way that everyone around the class now walked on eggshells around him. The Baku squad made sure to throw a guilty glance at him every time they approached Katsuki's desk. The class presidents, who were the first to apologize when Izuku entered the class, now looked so uncomfortable. Izuku is not part of 1A, a fact he knew when he first passed through those doors, but to see it thrown at his face almost hurt, almost. Past Izuku would have understood, They have been through death door together, so their bond was bound to be strong. And Izuku was used to this, not belonging, but unlike previous years he had his two idiots with him, so the distance between him and his peers did not seem like much. The situation almost seemed funny to him. How come they look so uncomfortable around him when he is the victim? The whole atmosphere inside the class was tense, as if they expected either Katsuki or himself to explode. And a fight to break out. Everyone was tense, even, I always mind my own business Hitoshi was tense. His quirk as usual absorbed as much emotion as it could without raising flags in the class. "I am here," the idiot shouted as he slid the door open. He then followed the idiotic phrase with a blinding smile and pose. "Can't believe I worship this guy. Young Midoriya, it so nice to see after. Lying is a bad trait in a hero." He was not in the mood to deal with All Might today. He did not want the mood he had from his fun week spent with his entire family together to be destroyed. "Young Midoriya, I do apologize for my previous behavior and if possible, I wanted to talk to you privately. You don't have to worry about me, All Might, and as I discovered you were right all along. A quirk is necessary for heroics. And remember those words because I will remind you of them the moment that precious one for all runs out. Just like I was nothing before I had this quirk, you will be nothing without one for all. Speaking of which, it is not yet time for heroics class. Oh, I almost forgot about that. As young Midoriya has pointed out, it is not yet time for heroics, but as Aizawa has taken a sick leave, I will be taking over this class for the time being." The tense atmosphere never went away, and because Izuku was a beach he decided to have lunch in the lunch hall instead of the rooftop. He chose the table closest to Katsuki and his friends, and it made his heart skip every time they glanced at him before they looked away uncomfortably. This scenario right here confirmed his villain potential as he wanted to laugh at their misery. It was fun seeing them whisper, unable to continue their usual silly antics. Even dumb Kaminari, who Izuku thought had ADHD, was sitting still and paying attention and made sure to whisper when he spoke. The sunny Kirishima, probably the one who felt the most shame seeing as he looked sadly at Izuku during class, kept throwing sad glances at him. The others around the table kept their voices low, and made sure not to make eye contact with Izuku. Izuku just kept talking with his two idiots like usual, making sure his voice was audible enough to make his neighbors uncomfortable. He almost wanted to record them and sent the video to Tamura. Today was a great day. The guilt on everyone's was worth the horror of realizing he vented his feelings out in front of everyone. Thinking of Tamura made him remember his parents' conversation on Saturday. He decided to take the rest of the week off. His father had somehow managed to find an open apartment in their building, so Tamura was closer. He spent the rest of his self-given holiday gaming with Tamura, who to this day was still trying to convince him to quit UA. His father, who was now blind and refused to give them any explanation, was trying his hardest to get Inko to talk to him. Inko, who just glared every time the man addressed him. His father pretended not to notice due to his disabled state, but Izuku could see how he tensed up every time his mother sent a glare in his direction. On the other hand, his mom loved Tamura. Tamura, who was still awkward around Inko despite the many years they have known each other, sometimes even talked. Inko ignored the awkward atmosphere and started treating the older boy like he was her son. She even encouraged the Tamura-Izuku bonding sessions. Tamura was always invited to dinner while Hisashi had to settle for packed food that was sent via one of the brothers along with a note on top. Izuku never bothered to read the notes in respect of his parents' privacy, the same privacy he is invading now as he listens to them argue in Inko's bedroom. "You promised the same thing before," his mom hissed. It was already uncharacteristic for his mom to shout, but this was the first time he has heard his mother this angry. "You promised when we were trying for Izuku, but that turned out to be a lie I forgave nonetheless. You promised when Izuku was born, but you broke that promise as quick as you made it. I still forgave you and let you be a part of our lives, despite knowing the risks that accompanied my decision. You broke every single promise you made to me. Let's not forget when Izuku was 5, your side business put his life in danger." He could tell from the slight tone change that his mother said the words sarcastically. He could not hear his father's response as unlike his mother, he was not shouting. We should open the door. A voice whispered in his ear. Tamura must have predicted Izuku's scream because he quickly put his hand on his mouth. Are you joking? Because there is no way a smart guy like you thinks that. And have you considered Izuku in this great plan of yours? He already hates me for trying to prevent him from being a hero. While his mother was shouting all of this, Tamura snuck out from behind him and creeped towards the door. Izuku watched in horror as the older boy carefully opened the door. He expected his fathers to notice Y5H his newly developed super hearing, but the man instead answered his mom, ignoring everything his mom has been saying in favor of reassuring her. You know Izuku could never hate you. And his mother, for some reason, broke down. No sound except for the little hiccups. Izuku knew his mother was a crier, but today was different. These were not the usual tears that willingly fell at the smallest of emotions. These sounded raw, hurt, and this was the first and probably the last time he would hear them. He never talks to me about anything. Hisashi, am I a bad mother? He decides he has heard enough, and he chooses to leave. Inko was not a bad mom, but she wasn't a good mom either, although it sounds like she had her reasons for her behavior. Izuku did not hate her, and the thought had never crossed his mind. He cared about his mother, just like he did for Tamura and his dad. Theoretically speaking, it is easy to destroy a town the size of Mizudafu in just a few hours, a fact they both knew. Prime All Might could probably do it in less than an hour if he really tried. Yes, they both knew, but knowing and seeing it go down are completely different matters. They never thought they would see such a sight in all their years, especially one brought out by someone the same age as them. Midoriya Izuku is powerful. Midoriya Izuku is destructive. This was a disaster brought on by their own thoughtlessness, they knew. They both knew how much Izuku adored his brother. He had spent countless days telling them all about how wonderful his brother was and how his family was everything to him. Then again, when they went to seek help from Nedzu, they did not think it would lead to this. They had a wonderful time during camp, practicing and discovering new aspects of their quirks. Then spending their breaks together, which led to an almost kiss moment between Hitoshi and Izuku, which had them blushing every time they looked at each other. Shudo had spent every minute of their time after that trying to get Izuku to kiss him, which was mortifying to Hitoshi and Izuku. Midnight, who accompanied them in Aizawa's stead, kept glancing between the three and smirking, which further embarrassed the two. Shudo was incapable of embarrassment. The trip back home was spent listening to Izuku complain about the imposed no cell phone rule that prevented him from talking with Tamura. He then went from complaining to worried as Tamura was uncontactable and from his social accounts has not been online for a few days. The other two boys had glanced at each other then. Something was definitely going on, and from his stomach churning the way it did, he had a feeling what was going on. As soon as the bus doors opened, Izuku got off and speed walked towards the gates. Apparently, Midnight did not see him, as a few minutes later she approached them and asked about Izuku's whereabouts. Their confirmation of something being wrong regarding Izuku's brother was when Midnight froze upon hearing their answer, a range of emotion playing on her face before she ran towards the school building. They knew then that Nedzu had done something with the information they offered. And for some reason Hitoshi's brain decided this was the time to be useful and align the pieces together. It finally made sense why a teacher who never missed school even when attacked by villains suddenly decided to take some time off. It made sense why they were so strict about contact with the outside world. It made sense why the PP Cats had a missing member. It made sense why Midnight had been keeping a close eye on Izuku during the whole camp. Why Izuku was required to be with another student at all time, whether it be them or Class 1B. The worry in All Might's eye every time he looked at Izuku, an emotion which they mistook as regret. Nedzu had no intention of helping Izuku and his brother like how they wanted. This plan was put in motion as soon as they told Nedzu about Tamura's whereabouts. It was just dumb of them to assume just because Tamura did only one villainous act he would be forgiven and given therapy and rehabilitation. Like they had telepathy, he looked at Shudo, who had an I see look in his eye. They took off towards the direction Izuku went. They had taken this road a few times when they escorted Izuku home. Shudo decided they were being too slow, so he carried Hitoshi in his arms and slid towards Izuku's block. They found him standing before what used to be his apartment building. It was currently under reconstruction. He had his phone in his hands and his shoulders were shaking. Like idiots they assumed he was crying. Hitoshi took a step towards him intending to console him. Izuku turned, and instead of the tears they expected his eyes were filled with fury, hot burning, righteous fury. The type of fury that spelt trouble for anyone within a 10 kilometers radius, the kind that would burn the world with no regrets if he were to be given matches. They both subconsciously took a step back, afraid of the animalistic rage Izuku was displaying. This was a side of Izuku that they had both thought they would never be against, a look they never thought would be directed at them. Izuku was petty, he held grudges like no one, he was tricky and had no trouble putting a fake facade for people he did not like. Izuku can sometimes be mad and he always found a way to seek petty revenge. They knew he could be sadistic when he wanted, but they also knew he could be sweet. Izuku could be gentle, caring. He could get mad for other people. Izuku had many sides that they thought they knew well. They knew Izuku was complicated, that he had layers and layers, but they thought they knew the base of everything that was Izuku. This new side was a surprise though, and for the first time since they met Green Bean, they were scared of him. Izuku right now made the Izuku who faced off against Stain look like a child. Who did you tell? Izuku, a whisper. That's not what I asked, who did you tell? Nezu. Why would you do that? I trusted you, Hitoshi, I trusted you both. I trusted you with my brother's life. And although the fury in his eyes does not go away, tears start trailing down his face. My mom's life. Izuku, we are sorry, we just did not know what to do. We panicked. Izuku, seeing him again just took me back to USJ. The look in his eyes. Shudo gets this faraway look in his eyes, as if his mind is back to you. He takes a step towards Izuku. Get away from me, Todoroki. Shudo pauses and he looks so broken at the use of a last name, because it means Izuku is distancing himself from them. Because to him the use of first name is a sign of their friendship, the use of first names is the first thing that they decided upon when becoming friends. Midoriya, Hitoshi turns and finds Aizawa, All Might and several other heroes behind him. He turns back to Izuku, and finds that the fury from earlier is back with a vengeance. Is it true? The heroes look uncomfortable at the question while Hitoshi and Shudo look between them and Izuku with confusion. Young Midoriya, please come. All Might is cut off by shouting from Izuku. You killed my What? Hitoshi whispers to himself, and like fate is mocking them, a newspaper blows to his feet. There, spread across the whole page in full color, is a picture of a faceless man hugging a green-haired woman with a hole in her chest. Hitoshi knew that shade of green way too well, he had seen it in hundreds of pictures. He knew these set of clothes too, because he had seen them in a full-body picture when mother and son went on a picnic. And oh no, his hands start shaking and the paper is taken out of his hands by porcelain white, long fingers that he knows well. He knows it's true from the way the heroes avoid eye contact with all of the students. Shudo takes a step away from the heroes, as if he is scared of what they were capable of. And he probably is, because unlike him, Shudo knows what kind of senseless violence heroes are capable of. He knows all too well that not all heroes are good guys. Midoriya, you are a Hero Corps student, you know that accidents sometimes happen. He is looking at Izuku, so he does not know which hero says that, and he does not recognize the voice. Izuku freezes, and the tears magically stops. He tilts his head and smiles a little. And as time goes on, the smiles gets bigger and bigger. Hitoshi looks on as Izuku's eyes lose their humanity little by little. It's Stain all over again for Shudo. The bright, innocent smile on his face does not match the fury radiating from Izuku's eyes. The bigger the smile gets, the colder his eyes get, and if it was dark, Shudo is sure they would be glowing red. His shadow gets darker and starts to shake as if expressing his suppressed anger. You are right, mistakes happen. And his voice is as sweet as sugar, sending a chill down Hitoshi's back. The heroes seem to feel the danger in his tone because they all go on guard. Out of nowhere, green shards stab the arrogant hero's neck. He chokes a little, helplessly using what little life remain in him to pull the shards out. It's chaos as everyone rushes to the dying hero's side to help. They watch as he takes his last breath with difficulty, the life fades from his eyes. They all simultaneously turn to Izuku. The smile is still there except now he has an extra accessory over his shoulder. It's the shadow from before except now it looks bigger, more solid. They have matching red eyes except Izuku's eyes seem unfocused, as if he can't see them. The heroes tense up, as if finally understanding the danger that is Midoriya Izuku. The smile is still there as if he can't grasp the gravity of his actions just now. The huge 3 meters tall shadow is bent over, with its arms resting on Izuku's shoulder. I hope you are not mad about that. After all, anything can happen in heroics. Is that not what you said, or does that only apply when it's me and my family? Young Midoriya, stop this. I don't want to fight against a minor. Hitoshi winced, because if he knew Izuku, he knew he would get triggered by All Might's words. This is where you draw the line? You have no problem killing an innocent, peaceful and helpless civilian woman, but fighting a minor is where you draw the line. My mom would never hurt a fly, but you had no problem with her death, but you suddenly grow a conscience when having to fight me. A sharp green shard materializes in front of him, and with a wave of his hand it speeds towards All Might, who dodges it like it's nothing. And then the shadow turns and looks towards the two classmates. Izuku is still facing the same direction he was earlier. I trusted you guys so much, and you took that trust and threw it away like it's nothing. You don't do that to people you love. That's what you said, right, Shudo? You said you loved me. And he is back to crying, except what comes out is not clear liquid but black liquid. And Hitoshi notices for the first time that Izuku's scara is no longer white but a pitch black. He turns back to the shadow. Find my brother, Hitoshi lip reads. The shadow starts sinking into the ground, and when it's gone, Izuku's eyes starts to focus. He turns to them. His face has smears of black from trying to wipe tears with his bare hands. I can understand my father. He has done many bad things in his life. He is a sinner, that I know, but my brother and mother. I will never forgive any of you for that, especially you All Might. Anyone who was involved, even bystanders, to my mom's death, I will make sure you suffer the same fate as me. The sweet tone is gone. He is back to normal Izuku. And somehow that is more frightening than furious Izuku, who sought nothing but destruction. The heroes are still just watching. They are waiting for All Might to take charge, but he is consumed by guilt and would most likely be unable to attack. While the heroes are still having doubts about approaching the green teen, Hitoshi decides to take initiative. But before he could, a wheezing sound is heard. Izuku raises a shield just in time to stop an arrow. He turns to the direction the arrow came from. Hitoshi expects him to maybe form a shard like before and send them towards that direction. Izuku instead raises his hand, and when he brings it down, the building 15 meters from them is sliced in half, horizontally. The top parts slowly slide down until it falls on and destroys the opposite building. Although he knows how Izuku's quirk work, he is still surprised that it's capable of such mass destruction. He had thought that Izuku could only move smaller version of the shield, like the shards from before. Hitoshi sees a flash of silver jumping to another building, so he assumes the archer is safe. Apparently celebrated too soon because the new building is destroyed next. The shield cutting it like butter. The shocked heroes start moving. Aizawa's eyes start glowing red, just in time to save another building. Izuku turns to him, tilts his head and smiles. The other closer combat-oriented heroes move. Izuku knows martial arts, and knowing how Aizawa has a time limit, all Izuku has to do is hold on for 10 seconds and wait for Aizawa to blink. Hitoshi quickly opens his hero costume case. He has a bad feeling about that little smile Izuku sent their way. Before Aizawa could blink, he sent his capture weapon towards Aizawa and pulls him towards his direction just in time for high-speed shards to pass by where Aizawa was before burying themselves in the ground. Thanks. Aizawa-sensei, what should we do? Shudo is suddenly beside him, and like Hitoshi he is just as lost. Go join the rescue heroes and help evacuate the people. We predicted this would happen, so we have been evacuating people out of Mizudafu for a while now. I imagine most will start panicking by now, so Shinso, your mission is to calm them down. Todoroki, you will guide the civilians to a safer place. Okay. And suddenly a hero is crashing into their sensei, sending both of them tumbling towards the unfinished building behind them. The both turn to the direction where Izuku is supposed to be, And it seems a lot has happened in the few minutes they were talking with Aizawa because now their friend has bruises all over his body. And now they are more heroes than before. Looks like they were not kidding when they said they were preparing for this. Then again, Aizawa started missing school as soon as Shudo and Hitoshi told Netsu about Tamura Shigaraki. Teleportation. This is the first time Hitoshi has seen this aspect of Izuku's quirk, but it's amazing. All he sees are flashes of green traveling from one place to another. Before another hero goes down. The heroes had decided to forego any strategy and were now just attacking as soon as he appeared. Looks like Izuku too had foregone defense for offense because some of the hits were connecting despite how fast he was teleporting. He teleports, sends a quirk-enhanced kick to Righteous Ribs which sent him flying towards Sweep who was running towards Izuku. Teleport, and he is behind Spark choking him. As a defense, Sparks releases electric current around him that shocks Izuku. From that alone Hitoshi can tell that Izuku is not in the right state of mind, because Izuku is not stupid enough to try that. Rational Izuku probably has 100 strategies on how to take down Sparks swiftly. Despite the electric shock, the most Izuku does is flinch before Sparks passes out. When he is done, he teleports back to his original spot, then turns to them. He is confused when Izuku starts running towards them. Should he defend or run? Except Izuku passes them before they could try anything. He heads straight to Aizawa, except before he could really reach him, a fiery punch is delivered to his face. And he feels a tugging behind him before his feet lifts off the ground. He looks behind him. Looks like Endeavor did not come alone. It seems a little excessive to him for the top 3 heroes to come together just to subdue a teen boy. He admits Izuku is powerful for his age, but he did not like how the heroes were handling this. To him it seems like they were saying they are not afraid to get their hands dirty, and they did not care about how old the opponent was. Izuku was not a villain, but they were treating this case like an S-class level 1. Endeavor starts stomping towards where a fallen and coughing Izuku is. Izuku hurries to put a barrier between them, before he stands up and runs towards the building closest to him. His pace is fast, but Hitoshi knows Izuku can be faster than that. As soon as Izuku disappears, the barriers starts to break down into little shards until it disappears. Tens of other heroes, including the flaming sidekicks, arrive and they immediately surround the building. Healers arrive and attend to the unconscious heroes. It all happens so quick, from the top 2 arriving, to the heroes surrounding Izuku. You, the one with purple hair, take Shudo and get out of here. He is still dazed so he just nods but doesn't move a muscle. Shinso, cornered animals are dangerous, and right now Midoriya is feeling cornered. He might have been careful not to hurt anyone beyond recovery earlier, but right now that DS-Pilin is out the window. You understand what that means, right? Shinso, Todoroki, right now you are nothing more than threats to Midoriya, threats that he is willing to eliminate. They both nodded. Todoroki, get him out of here. Then he turned to Endeavor and Hawks. We don't have much time, he already sent one of his quirks after Tamura Shigaraki, so we have to subdue Midoriya before he arrives. The others nod. Let's go Toshi. And he is Princess, oh my god, carried away from all the mess. They head to UA as they figure it might be the safest place right now. They are right as they find most of their classmates there, all watching the news on the smartboard. The situation had changed from the moment they left to now. Izuku was now fighting earnestly. He was injured and was limping, but that didn't slow him down. He was using his teleportation to avoid the more dangerous heroes while taking out the small fries. They would be a few seconds where he would just fight hand to hand with no quirk in sight before he would destroy nearby buildings and disappear. The seconds where his quirk was erased were always the most brutal because no matter how experienced Izuku is in martial arts, he could never defeat 3 or more experienced heroes coming at him all at once. Not to mention said heroes still had their quirks. All Might as promised, did not fight Izuku, in fact he was nowhere near the battlefield. Class 1A kept glancing towards them each time something dramatic happened, especially when Izuku took some dangerous hits. He doesn't know why, but he expected their classmates to say some mean comments about Izuku, but the comments never came. Most looked sympathetic towards Izuku's situation. The fighting went on for 10 more minutes before Izuku just stopped moving and fell down. Izuku had honestly looked exhausted before they left. It was a miracle that held on for that long. A collective sigh of relief was released by the class, relief he could not feel because of his worry. Shudo had said Izuku's shadow could transport people by absorbing them and the traveling underground with them. If Izuku were to completely lose his consciousness, his quirk would naturally stop. That meant Tamura, who was currently being transported to Izuku's location, was in danger of suffocation and being buried alive. This was a problem. Right now Tamura is the only thing Izuku has, so if he dies, they are fed. A sidekick with a capture quirk moves the rope coiled around his waist and ties Izuku with it. The news reporter announces victory with a sad smile, praising the heroes for stopping the teen with an out-of-control quirk. It looked like a job well done until Izuku raised his hand and brought it down again. They all held their breath, expecting another building to be destroyed at his hands. What happened instead was a dome forming from around him. This one looked reinforced, unlike the usual one. Izuku was sitting up and shaking. The camera zoomed in on his face. His eyes were closed, exhaustion written all over his face. Is it me, or is his hair turning white? Shudo whispered to him. He was right. Izuku's green hair was now several shades lighter, with the roots now white. I think it's a sign of quirk exhaustion. Izuku has never used his quirk for this long ever since he got it. Several heroes were trying to break down the dome, but the destroyed parts were being repaired faster than they were being destroyed. Aizawa erased Izuku's quirk, and the dome started to fall apart. It looked like a success until Aizawa had to blink. As soon as he did, the dome started to repair itself rapidly, cutting a sidekick's hand who was about to charge at Izuku. We really messed up, didn't we? He accidentally said his thoughts out loud. Shudo just nodded. It looked like the fight was becoming stagnant, and the only thing that could end it was if Izuku were to lose all his stamina. At least that was what he and all the others were thinking until a black puddle started to form underneath Izuku, and out came a bandaged Tamura Shigaraki. The camera refocused on Izuku again. He looked relieved at the sight of his brother before he threw himself in his arms and started crying. The cameras zoom out again. That must have been a stark reminder to all about how young Izuku was, because the reporters now looked a little sympathetic. They were somber as they gave a quick recap of the events of earlier this week, the photo from before being displayed on the screen. Bakugo accidentally explodes his table as he quickly stands up in shock. And he shocks the whole class when tears start trailing down his eyes, mouth open as he stares at their smartboard. Hitoshi wonders what reason were 1A given as explanation for Izuku's current behavior, because they looked shocked. The reporters don't explicitly state that these were Izuku's parents, but from how he was sobbing in Tamura's arms, it was obvious he was connected to them. 1A is smart. 1A connects the dots fast. Bakugo doesn't throw a temper tantrum like Hitoshi is expecting. Instead, he just crumbles to the floor. The whole class just remains still. They don't know how to handle this new side of Bakugo. Even when they move to comfort him, they just rub his back without saying a single word. This will be dangerous. Huh. It's Shudo, and unlike him who is watching Bakugo, he is still watching the screen where Tamura is still consoling Izuku. There were two things stopping Izuku from going all out, Aizawa-sensei, the fact that he had to maintain enough stamina to safely transport his brother so he couldn't exhaust himself too much. With his brother here, there is no longer any limits on his power. Aizawa would have the choice of either stopping Izuku or Shigaraki. The elder will be the obvious choice, as his quirk is too dangerous, and unlike Izuku, he will not just be injuring a few heroes, he will aim to kill. With Aizawa focusing on Shigaraki, and with no limitations on how much energy he can use, Izuku will have free reign on his quirk. Sheet. His words came true as Izuku stopped crying, and the dome slowly came down. Tamura stood up, then held a hand out for Izuku, who was wiping away his tears. Tamura puts his hand on the ground. It is the first time Hitoshi sees his quirk in action. The ground starts to break apart. Pieces of the fallen building that were closest next to them start deteriorating as the heroes start running away. As soon as it started, it stops, and Izuku moves. He is faster than before, no sloppy mistakes unlike earlier. He is swift and precise. He uses shards of his barriers to destroy any feathers Hawk sends after him, using teleportation with no pattern behind it. He doesn't go after the small fries like before, he goes after everyone, evident by him punching Endeavor's jaw and sending him flying through another half-built building. He looks rejuvenated, the tiredness from before nowhere in sight. They are trying to run, Shuto says from beside him, and Hitoshi can see it clearly. Izuku's shadow cannot transport more than one person at a time, that means even if they wanted to, they cannot run together. Turning their backs on the heroes is dangerous right now, that means they cannot run outright. Staying for too long is dangerous as backup may arrive at any time, which is why Izuku is knocking them down fast while Tamura serves as a distraction. I wish we could help them somehow, Shuto comments, and Hitoshi shares the sentiment. Izuku might be angry with them right now, but he knew he would appreciate their help. Instead, they chose to run away like cowards when all this mess is their fault. Hitoshi wonders why Izuku just doesn't target Aizawa. Izuku teleports back to where his brother is. They talk while fighting off the few heroes who are still standing. Shigaraki nods to whatever Izuku is saying, and then Izuku raises his hand, so they all know what's coming next. When he brings his hand down, big pieces of green shards fall down like rain. While the heroes are distracted, Izuku climbs on his brother's back and Shigaraki runs in the opposite direction of Endeavor. None of the heroes try to destroy the shards head-on, instead they dodge, which buys enough time for Shigaraki to put some distance between him and them. The news helicopter follows the brothers. After minutes of them running with the news helicopter following them, Shigaraki pauses and points towards the helicopter. Another large shard materializes and Izuku sends in towards the news. They can hear the people inside the helicopter panic as they try to escape before they can be taken down. The camera falls down from the helicopter, recording as it goes down. Bony fingers catch it. It is fiddled with until Shigaraki comes on screen. The camera must be designed to also record audio because they hear Izuku's voice. "Let's go Tomuinai." The camera catches a glimpse of Izuku. His face looks red and sullen, tiredness painted all over his face. His hair is now totally white, and his eye color now looks red. He looks different from before, but somehow still the same. The camera cuts, including audio, and the reporters start discussing what just took place. News vans have been sent to where the heroes are gathered asking about the opinion on the events of today. Through it all, only one thought is stuck in Hitoshi's mind, and it's not his betrayal. "Just as I thought, white hair suits you,"